Over 1700 years ago, Emperor Constantine decreed Sunday as the day of rest in the Roman Empire. And today, we're seeing history repeat itself in fulfillment of the Bible's warnings in Revelation 13. Welcome to the Venerable Day of the Sun. Welcome, everybody. Welcome to the show. My name is Tutor Alexander, and this is the Dance of Life podcast. Today, we're starting a very important and new segment on this show. It's called the Venerable Day of the Sun, and it's going to go for as long as possible. We'll see how long it goes. That'll be a fun little experiment, but nonetheless, this is going to be a special segment, and it'll be my ongoing Sunday law coverage, as well as Christian nationalist stuff. But I've decided that I have enough videos in my Christian nationalist playlist. Anybody who wants to learn about what is coming can learn there. And really, it's right on the horizon, folks, so I don't need to be covering it for you. If you're awake, you can interpret the news and understand where everything is going. What really matters now, what matters more than, Christian nationalism, everybody knows that's the future anyway, at least the people who are awake and who watch what they're supposed to watch, who have Fennec fox ears, they know it's coming. And certainly if you've watched my videos, my series, my Great Delusion series, my End Time series, all these different, resources that are freely available for you, the Dark to Light playlist, you know what's coming. So there's no point in, covering every single Christian nationalist story. What is important is covering the moves that are happening by the beast to bring the world to itself in fulfillment of Revelation 13. i.e. Sunday law coverage. And that is really going to be the thermometer of how close we get to the return of Christ. And if you've watched my Timeline to the End video, you know what I'm talking about, because ultimately this is the barometer. That's why it's also important to watch other things related to this, such as the Jews converting and things happening in the Middle East, like charismatic revivals, all these things that I've talked about in the past, because ultimately the world has to marvel after the beast and take its mark. And the mark, of course, is Sunday rest. Not Sunday worship, because you can worship God on any day of the week. It is going to be Sunday rest. It is going to be the beast telling you when you can rest, so that by resting you acknowledge it as the creator, the provider, the redeemer, and of course reject God in the process. And of course the people who take the mark, who are reprobate, will not be saved. They'll be destroyed. The first bowl judgment is on the people who, excuse me, I'm still coughing a little bit. If you can just pardon my coughs, I'm still dealing with that stupid little plague. I'm not sick anymore, but my goodness, it just lingers, man. It just lingers, and this dry cough is always sneaking around ready to attack. But anyway, if I cough, I apologize. But what was I saying? The point is, ultimately, Sunday legislation is the thing to watch for, because the devil is going to use that to obtain counterfeit worship. He's always wanted to be like God. That's the devil's lie to Adam and Eve. That's the devil's lie to the fallen angels. And so the thing to watch for is, how will the devil counterfeit worship, which is through the day of rest. It'll be the pagan day of the sun that has been around since the dawn of time, from Babel, probably even before the flood, but certainly with the Tower of Babel, with Nimrod, with sun worship, with having a day to honor the sun. I cover these things in great depth in my series, especially the Sabbath series. You can look it all up there. It's very obvious, folks, and if you know the truth, then you know that the day of rest has never changed. It has never changed from the seventh day, because the seventh day identifies God as the creator, the provider, and the redeemer in many different ways, both as the creator resting after creation and as the redeemer resting after redemption in the tomb on the seventh day. If you have Sunday law coverage that you want to share, join the chat, the Fennec Fox chat on the website. It's danceoflife.com. It's free to join. We have a thread there dedicated to Sunday watching and basically Sunday law stuff. So make sure you post it in there. You can also send me a direct message with the link. Excuse me. And That'll be really good too, because this is a great way to help create future episodes, is to be part of the, I'll be honest, a lot of the stuff I get, I mean, not everything I get, but there's a good deal amount of links that I get that people just send to me randomly. Little birds come and chirp something away, and I put it in the next episode. So if you want to help to form the next episode, then pay attention and drop those links in there. Send me the links and we can cover them. Of course, if they haven't been covered already or whatever else. Now, if you're new here, if you're new to this idea and all the things that I'm saying are kind of like, what are you talking about? Watch my End Time series, watch the Great Delusion, watch my Sabbath series, watch my Christian Nationalist playlist, watch my Dark to Light playlist. All of these resources, practically every video I've made almost, talks about this issue. The future is not Zionist. The future is not communist. The future is not Muslim. It's not globalist. It is Christian nationalist. That is the future. It's a counterfeit Christian power. Revelation 13 tells you that the dragon, Satan, gave his power to the Catholic Church. That is the chosen vehicle for him to manifest the final test that God has allowed him to do, which is to be worshipped. And of course, that is going to draw apart the elect of God, who will have the power of the Holy Spirit to give them awareness that they are not going to rest on Sunday when the law becomes active and then becomes enforced. They're going to wake up. Hopefully you wake up sooner than that, but nonetheless, people will wake up, while the other ones who are counterfeits are being drawn to the devil through all this great delusion that's happening. There's over 150 hours of content in the things that I listed. Probably more. I'm just throwing an estimate out there. Who knows? But either way, it's a lot of content, nonstop evidence that ultimately history is repeating and the Bible is true. So indulge me if you think this is crazy talk. If, of course, you've watched those playlists and those videos, then you know it's not crazy talk. Sunday is the mark of the beast, and you will see Sunday laws. Hopefully today, in this first installment, we'll hit the ground running and you can see just for yourself how real all of this stuff is. It's quite a time to be alive. Now, why is the Sunday law thing something to monitor? Why is this one of the things that we need to have our fingers on the pulse for? You know, every day we need to be looking in the news for this type of stuff. Not that you need to obsess over it, but pay attention is the point. So why should we pay attention? Well, a couple of important things to remember. Jesus said in Matthew 24 that some will be left alive. If it wasn't for the elect, the days were shortened for the sake of the elect. So that means that some people will be left alive. We know that because even in other places, like where Paul says that those who are left alive at the time of Christ's return will join those who are resurrected from the grave. So there's this sense that people will be left alive. That's number one. Number two is the Bible warns that the beast is going to be worshipped, and it's going to persecute those who do not obey. Eventually, the beast will show its fangs, folks. Right now, all the stuff I'm going to show you, it's not, I mean, some of it's okay, but most of it is very subtle. And you have to remember, the devil is the most subtle creature that God has ever made. So the things that we're going to be covering, excuse me, we're going to be covering today are just showing you how subtle the devil is. But eventually, the devil's not going to be subtle anymore, folks. A snake is a snake, and it crawls around quietly in the bushes, but eventually it has to strike. And when it does strike, you see its fangs, you see its poison, you see it for what it really is. So eventually, the snake will show its fangs because it wants to be worshipped. And once all of society has come along, it's going to be easy to persecute the remaining stubborn heretics who refuse to bow down to the beast. Eventually, they will enforce a no buy, no sell situation because that's what the Bible tells you. Eventually, they will throw people into prison. Maybe there'll be some sort of digital inquisition, which I've talked about. Death sentences. It's very likely, folks. You have to wrap your head around that in the next 10 years, you are likely going to see a digital inquisition. Why do you think all this AI is being developed? What is the ultimate aim for AI? AI is designed to integrate with everything so that you can track behavior, because enforcing behavior like resting on a particular day is going to take some technology. And of course, we'll look at some of those things today too, like with crypto and the digital monetary system that's coming. But the point is this, eventually they're going to do all these nasty things. And at this point, once you see this, once you see the fangs of the beast, that's another important marker because, again, some people have to be left alive, meaning that once they start really showing their fangs, then the countdown to the first bowl judgment is coming. We don't know what the time difference is, but again, Jesus has given you a limit by saying some people will be left alive. Meaning, once they start putting people in prison, death sentences, and doing all these different things, no buy, no sell, the bowls will drop any moment because the first bowl starts with the people who took the mark of the beast. And of course, the bowls don't last very long. They're not designed for people to repent. They're not historically fulfilled. I mean, they happen in time, but they're not like, over hundreds of years. The bowl judgments are very quick. They're probably going to be a couple months maximum. And I've talked about that as well in my Timeline to the End series. But either way, that's the barometer. And so watching how this thing unfolds is the key to understanding where you are in history. And of course, we are at the end. But as the end of the end gets closer, these things will become more clear and manifest themselves. So get edified with the truth. Tell other people about these things. Help them wake up so that they get out of Babylon. Right now, God is drawing his elect. Again, if I use my hand gestures here, the two fingers going past each other, if you're listening, but God is drawing his elect out of Babylon, out of this mystery cult. Some people are waking up at different times than others, but nonetheless, he's drawing his elect, giving them supernatural awareness and realization. I've met so many people in the last, just even the last year who have come out of the whole Trump delusion, out of dispensationalism, out of all these different deceptions that are now uniting the world under the beast. So God is drawing his elect out of Babylon. More people will learn. And I encourage you to be part of that journey. God will be successful regardless of what you do. But nonetheless, we are invited to participate in that drawing. And that's an exciting place to be. It's better to be participating than to be ignorant and wait for God to wake you up. God will wake up everybody he has chosen to wake up. But it is something to be grateful for if you have woken up to these things and you have awareness that you can be part of spreading that awareness to others. That's a really great thing, and that's something to be grateful for. Some were going to wake up at the very end. Like the thief on the cross, he was saved at the very end, which again gives us a picture and a type of how the plan of salvation works. Some people will figure it out right at the end, right when they start, persecuting Sabbath keepers. And you're going to see people like Candace Owens and Andrew Tate. Of course, he's Muslim now, but don't worry, he'll come around. And people like that start yelling that we should do something to these Sabbath keepers. We should start persecuting, throw them in jail. Heck, you know what? Just behead them publicly. That'll teach everybody. Once you start seeing these types of things, people will keep waking up. And some of these evil things that need to happen are necessary for certain people to wake up. Everything has a purpose. Some people wake up later than others, and they're going to need to be roughed up a little bit to wake up. But that's just the plan of God, and that's something that we have to endure because everything will glorify God in the end. A lot of conservatives right now are starting to see the error of the right and of Christian nationalism, of Trump, as these things get crazier. And that's a good thing. And that proves the point that God is drawing his elect out of Babylon. So when you see somebody who's a Christian nationalist or a dispensationalist, do not let that discourage you, because they may be somebody who God has chosen to save out of this mess. So we just have to stand for the truth and ultimately be patient and have faith that God will wake them up if he's chosen to wake them up. Today, we're going to look at a lot of news stories in the last 6 months, with a few exceptions, some of them from, 2 or 3 years ago, just for context, so you can see some important things. I'm going to post the references for the episode in the description of this, in the post on my website. So if you want the references for all the articles that I've looked at today, all the things I've looked at, then check out the link in the actual post on my website, and you'll be able to find it there. Because that's what I'm going to do from now on with these particular episodes. Not with everything. With my series, I do this, but with these episodes, I will post the references so that you can have them for yourself and reference them to other people. Or if you want to cover the stories yourself, then you have them there. So with that, make sure you hit that subscribe button, like, share, comment, tell people the truth, folks. Let them know what's coming, because what's coming is going to be a massive deception. It's going to be a massive deception. It really is. You will need the power of the Holy Spirit to wake up. There is no other way. You will have no chance without the Holy Spirit. And so ultimately, we don't know who God is going to do that for. But we are called, if you've been given knowledge and awareness, God does not give that to you for you to sit on it. God gives that to you for you to do something with it. That's why you have knowledge. It's not for you to just sit there and enjoy it by yourself. Of course, enjoy it. That's why God shares knowledge and wisdom. But ultimately, it's for us to do something with. So I hope that you're doing something with the gift that God has given you. Remember that the devil comes as an angel of light. 2 Corinthians 11:14, very popular verse. And no wonder, for even Satan disguises himself as an angel of light. Oh, my little... Okay, yeah, I didn't click my little... So many things to click and prepare for these episodes, I swear. But I had my little mouse highlighter thing. Anyway, no wonder, for even Satan disguises himself as an angel of light. Watch my Satan series, recently released, to understand some very important things about the devil, which a lot of people don't understand today. And that's why they're being deceived. They think that the devil and evil is obvious. It's the big bad, dark, hoofed, red cape and buck-toothed grin, horns on your head type of devil. And that's not at all what the Bible says. The Bible doesn't describe Satan too much, but when it does describe him, like in this verse, 2 Corinthians 11:14, it says that he appears as an angel of light. And of course, we've looked at historical examples, and all of these examples of false prophets, false deceivers in history, Constantine, his experience with the light, Muhammad, angel of light, appeared to him. Ignatius of Loyola saw a shining serpent. Ellen White, Joseph Smith, they all saw shiny angels and false Christs. Everybody saw a false light. And so that confirms what the Bible says, that the devil does appear as an angel of light. So what does that mean? Well, that means that the devil appears as something that is good and reasonable and seemingly true. And that's a real problem if you don't have that discernment. And of course, most of the world doesn't, which is why they embrace the Pope and the call for Sunday being a day of rest for the world. Satan is the most subtle creatures that God has ever made. You have to keep remembering that. You really do. The Bible tells you in the very beginning, Genesis 3, after creation, the very first thing it tells you, what does it tell you? It reveals to you the enemy. And it tells you that the enemy is the most subtle creature that God has ever made, meaning he's not stupid. He knows exactly how to seduce you. He knows what drives you. He knows how to throw you off balance. He knows how to abuse existing imbalances in your thinking and to ultimately deceive you so he can accuse you and murder you. Now, of course, the devil can't accuse believers, and that's why he's lost his power. But either way, he doesn't know who is elect anyway, so he's trying to destroy as many people as possible through his deceptions before he's destroyed. What you're seeing right now is a rise of the false light religion, of the mystery religion of the ages, really Mystery Babylon, coming forward through a false Christianity and really Catholicism, because that's what's the driving head, is what the Bible tells you. True evil is the impersonation of Christ. True evil is the impersonation of Christ. There are obvious evils like communism and Satanism and atheism. Of course, those are obvious evils. But really, true evil is the evil that impersonates Christ. because that is evil that you need discernment for. Most anybody with a normal conscience, whether you're a believer or not, can spot obvious evil. People killing other people, communism, Satanism. These things are very obvious, folks. But what about the things that are not as obvious? Charles Spurgeon's quote, which I love to quote, he said, discernment is not about knowing the difference between good and bad or right and wrong. Discernment is about knowing the difference between right and almost right. That's what discernment's about. So my goal with these updates is to train your discernment. Of course, I use that little fox as an example, and it's a great example because the fox, the Fennec fox, the ears are probably bigger than the head, which is really funny, but it's a great little symbol. It's a great little symbol of discernment because you have to have massive ears to sense all of these subtleties that are happening. And if you don't, then the subtleties will take over your life and they'll wrap around you. And when the beast shows its fangs, it's going to be too late because you've already been strangled. So let's make sure that you don't get strangled by the beast. Of course not. If you watch these episodes, then hopefully your discernment has grown quite a bit. But either way, let's jump into it. We have quite a lot of things to discuss today and read and review and comment on. This is from 2020. And again, it's one of those articles where it's a little bit older, but I wanted to show it to you because I never covered this article before, but it's a very important article. Adventists in Italy join Laudato Si circles, a Catholic organization working to implement the Pope's Green Sunday law. This is from December of 2020, just a couple of years ago. So Adventists are joining with the Pope in support of the climate change agenda. Now, before I read this, it's very important you understand that there are elect in the Adventist church and they need to come out of her. That's why I created the series on Adventism and exposing Adventism as a daughter of Mystery Babylon, which sounds really crazy because they're the ones, probably the only Protestants right now that are exposing the Catholic Church specifically. So that's a very interesting situation. But nonetheless, go watch that series, Adventism. I love my Adventist friends. I really do. I still watch What's Up Prof with Professor Veith in his Sunday law updates. So Adventism has some good things. They really do. And they are our brothers and sisters, but they are deceived like every other denomination or religion with their false prophet, with certain teachings like the investigative judgment, even with the Sabbath. They follow the Sabbath, from sundown to sundown like the Jews with the Talmud. So there are many errors with Adventism, and we need to help evangelize these people out of this denomination because it will be integrated or destroyed. Excuse me. It will be integrated or destroyed. And this is proof of that. This article right here is proof of that. And this is from like 4 years ago. Pope Francis is calling for action and the churches are responding. Love for the environment is uniting the different religions. The churches are coming together to advocate for a common home to fight against climate change and climate injustice. Earlier this year, Roman Catholics, Orthodox, Buddhists, Muslims, and Seventh-day Adventists joined the Laudato Si Circles organization to unite in ecumenism for a single purpose. The goal was to show respect for the environment. The meeting took place in Cesena, Italy, where the different religions shared reflections on the importance of caring for creation. The participants included the Diocesan Office for Social Problems and Work, which is Roman Catholic, the Office for Ecumenism and Interreligious Dialogue, that's another Jesuit term is dialogue, Roman Catholic, the Romanian Greek Catholic Church, the Seventh-day Adventist Church, the Ukrainian Greek Catholic Church, the Laudato Si Circle, the Islamic Cultural Center of Cesena, the Ananti Shanti Yoga Cesena Center. So everybody's a friend, folks. Everybody's a friend of the beast. They're all marveling together at what the beast is doing, which is saving us from all of this climate change. Seventh-day Adventists in Italy are now joining the Catholic climate movement called Laudato Si Circles to help implement Pope Francis' encyclical Laudato Si. The Pope's encyclical calls for Sunday to be implemented as a weekly day of rest to save the environment. That's right. If you read Laudato Si, it has a bullet point in there about Sunday. So you have to understand that the climate change agenda, which I've covered this recently in my Dark to Light playlist, the climate change agenda has gone from dark to light. It's gone from secular to moral. It is now a moral issue, folks, because again, everything is being wrapped to the beast. Climate change is a moral issue now. And of course, a moral issue requires a moral solution. Do you understand? It's no longer about, well, we need to make laws about carbon credits and yeah, that was just the runner up, just to kind of warm the water up for you. That was the Paris version. We need the Rome version. We need a moral solution. What's the moral solution? Well, you got to rest. You got to rest on Sunday for the environment. Rome is very pleased when our own people begin to help secure its future Sunday law. That's right. Now, this is from, I think, the Open Public Relations. I don't know if this is an Adventist. It's a press release from Adventist Messenger, right? Yeah, because I'd be surprised if anybody else covered this kind of stuff. But there you go. Seventh-day Adventism from several years ago, a very obvious evidence that they've been corrupted. Oh boy, this is Julia Hartley Brewer. Gosh, so many little login things. It says we'll read about her in just a second, but she says, as devout atheists, my family and I like to be inclusive, so we happily celebrate all the major religious festivals, which include chocolate or alcohol. So obviously she's being sarcastic. A very happy Easter to all of you. So this is an atheist that how sarcastic she's being or not, either way, she is taking the beast's way of doing things. Where was she taking it? On the hand or on the head? The answer is on the hand. She doesn't actually believe in these things, but she's participating because, it's chocolate and alcohol. Sure, I'll go to church on Sunday. It doesn't matter. Again, worshiping God on Sunday, it's not a sin. You can worship God on any day of the week, but just realize that Sunday, as a training behavior to get you to obey, is going to be part of the final thing. This is another post from X, and it says, starting a petition, this is from this year, May 12th, 2024, Julia Hartley Brewer. Starting a petition for public flogging of people who mow and trim their lawns for hours on end on sunny Sunday afternoon. Any takers? I thought that was a very interesting quote from this person because it alludes to something that actually happened in history. She wants to start a petition for public flogging of people who basically are bothering her on sunny Sunday. This is an atheist who is having her Sunday, her holy day, of when she gets to rest and relax, being bothered by these people who are mowing their lawns. We should do something. There's a moral issue here from an atheist. Do you understand the significance here? Atheism is a relativistic position. You don't have a moral objective truth as an atheist. Atheism, liberalism are relativists. You don't have an objective truth to ground your morality on. And yet here you have an atheist demanding that there's a moral issue going on and we should have a moral punishment. Very interesting. Let's read about Julia Hartley Brewer. Julia Hartley Brewer is a conservative British radio presenter, political journalist, and newspaper columnist. She has hosted a radio show on talk radio's simulcast on talk called Julia Hartley Brewer on weekdays from 10 a.m. So she's a British talk show host, relatively popular person. Did I highlight something here? I did highlight. She has declared that she is an atheist. In 2010, she described herself as a staunch and long-standing Republican. She's an honorary associate of the National Secular Society. So a very committed atheist, still committed even as of this day. So we have proof that she's an atheist, and yet she's making these moral claims. But now I want to draw your attention to some interesting history about the Puritans in England. This is from a site with way too many pop-up ads. How do I get rid of these? My goodness. This is called legendsofamerica.com, and it's Puritans of England. I have some interesting history. And I've covered this, of course, in my Sabbath series, but let's see what they have to say. Though the Puritans enjoyed the freedom of worship, the Puritan fathers had no tolerance for opposing religious or political views. It was not only individual salvation that mattered, but also the welfare of the community, i.e., the common good. As a result, communities demanded religious conformity, and dissent was tolerated only within strict limits. The most famous dissidents within the Puritan community of Massachusetts were, Bay, or Roger Williams and Anne Hutchinson, who were banished following disagreements over theology and policy. Does this sound like maybe Puritans might be a daughter of the harlot? Only Puritan men who were church members and owned land could vote for governor and representatives to the general court. Women were not allowed to participate in government. The general court made strict laws for the colony that governed crime, regulated business and social relations, religious affairs, and family relations, and even dictated your dress. Some of these laws included Sunday was a holy day. Therefore, trade and business were not allowed, and no other public meetings could be held other than church services. Church meetings on Sunday included 2-hour services in the morning and in the afternoon. Travel on Sunday was banned except for walking to and from the meeting house and for emergencies. This sounds like Talmudic Judaism. Very interesting to see the legalist spirit manifest in different ways. Any entertainment was banned on Sunday. If a person missed church, they had to go to court and pay a fine. The Puritans thought it was essential to be able to read and understand the Bible. Too bad they didn't realize that the Bible says the day of rest is on Saturday. But anyway, schools were created to help educate the children of the colony. The old deluder law stated that every town of 50 or more families had to pay for a teacher and that all the children could attend school. It's starting to sound a lot like what's happening today. You'll see with the whole Louisiana and the Ten Commandments being published in schools. Any signs of resistance to the government were punishable by public humiliation to banishment. Capital crimes included worshiping any other god, blasphemy, counterfeiting, witchcraft, murder, sodomy, rape, and adultery. Now, really quick break. Who gets to determine what worshiping any other god means? How are you determining that? Who gets to determine what blasphemy means? What about, well, I mean, these other ones are pretty objective, but these moral, religious sins, how do you determine that? Are you using Bible or are you using tradition? That's the question. They also controlled individual behavior through fierce gossip, defamatory and often obscene billboards, and lawsuits. In one town, 20% of the adults in each decade were charged with an offense, usually a morals violation. Pay attention, folks. Pay attention. We're about to experience a revisiting of this type of society. If you think I'm crazy, just hang on. Punishments for violating Puritan laws included fines, imprisonment, pillory, stocks, whipping. There it is. Ducking stool, public humiliation, hanging, tar and feathering, ears being cut off, burning, and even a hot owl through the tongue if an individual spoke against their religion. Believing in the Old Testament methods, Puritans felt no remorse about administering punishment. So that's it about the Puritans. I've covered this quite a bit. Let's see if there's something else. Yeah, we do have something else. This is from the Reformed Reader. And it's the reformedreader.org, and it's something about the Puritans and their various laws. Chapter 17, the observances of the day. Let's see. Thus, in New London, we find in the latter part of the 17th century a wicked fisherman presented before the court and fined for catching eels on Sunday. Another fined 20 shillings for sailing a boat on the Lord's Day. Which, by the way, the Lord's Day is the 7th day. It's not Sunday. That's the counterfeit. While in 1672, lovers John and Lewis and Sarah Chapman were accused of and tried for sitting together on the Lord's Day under an apple tree in Goodman Chapman's orchard. So harmless and so natural an act. In Plymouth, a man was sharply whipped for shooting fowl on Sunday. Another was fined for carrying a grist of corn home on the Lord's Day, and the miller who allowed him to take it was also fined. They were crazy with their fines, especially on Sunday. Elizabeth Eddy of the same town was fined in 1652 10 shillings for wringing and hanging out clothes on Sunday. A Plymouth man for attending to his tar pits on the Sabbath, i.e. Sunday, it's not the Sabbath is Saturday, was set in the stocks. James Watt in 1658 was publicly reproved for writing a note about a common business on the Lord's Day, at least in the evening somewhat too soon. Super legalist, folks. A Plymouth man who drove a yoke of oxen was presented before the court, as was also another offender who drove some cows a short distance without need on the Sabbath, which again for them is Sunday. In Newbury in 1646, Aquila Chase and his wife were presented and fined for gathering peas from their garden on the Sabbath. but upon investigating, the fines were remitted and the offenders were only admonished. In Wareham in 1772, the William Estes acknowledged himself guilty of racking hay on the Lord's Day, and he was fined 10 shillings. In 1774, another Wareham citizen, for a breach of the Sabbath and pulling apples, was fined 5 shillings. A Dunstable soldier, for wetting a piece of an old hat to put in his shoe to protect his foot for doing this piece of heavy work on the Lord's Day, was fined and paid 40 shillings. Captain Kemble of Boston was in 1656 set for 2 hours in the public stocks for his lewd and unseemly behavior, which consisted in kissing his wife publicly on Sunday upon the doorstep of his house when he had just returned from a voyage and absence of 3 years. Now, really quick break. How did these people get fined? Because people told on them. They snitched. Well, guess what's going to happen eventually, folks, when you're going to have AI monitoring everything? AI is going to be snitching on you. And these things that you think are so ridiculous that I'm reading to you, and of course they are ridiculous, that legalist spirit is going to come back, folks. You're going to see it. You will see it, and it will be very intense eventually, because the Bible tells you that you will not be able to buy or sell unless you participate spiritually in acknowledging the beast as your provider, your creator, and your redeemer. Moving on. The lewd offender was a man of wealth and influence, the father of Madame Sarah Knights, the fearful female travailer, whose diary of a journey from Boston to New York and return, written in 1704, rivals in quality if not in quantity Judge Sewall's much-quoted diary. A traveler named Burnaby tells of a similar offense of an English sea captain who was soundly whipped for kissing his wife on the street of a New England town on Sunday, and of his retaliation in kind, but a clever trick upon his chastisers. But Burnaby's narrative always seemed to me of dubious credibility. So whether this happened or not, who knows, but it is consistent with a lot of other stories of people getting whipped for various offenses on Sunday. Abundant proof can be given that the act of legislature in 1649 was not a dead letter which ordered that whoever shall profane the Lord's Day by doing any serial work or such like abuses shall forfeit for every such default 10 shillings or be whipped. Yeah, this is one of the laws that the Puritans had, and I've covered these again in my Sabbath series in great depth. You can check them out. The Vermont Blue Book contained equally sharp Sunday laws. Whoever was guilty of any rude, profane, or unlawful conduct on the Lord's Day in words or action, by clamorous discourses, shouting, hallooing, screaming, running, riding, dancing, jumping, was to be fined 40 shillings and whipped upon the naked back not to exceed 10 stripes. The New Haven Code of Laws, more severe still, ordered that profaning of the Lord's Day shall be punished by fine, imprisonment, or corporal punishment. And if proudly and with a high hand against the authority of God, with death. Do you understand? Who is determining whether you are sinning with a high hand against the authority of God? Excuse me. Who's determining that? Who is determining that? You have to ask yourself that, folks, because this is the tactic that the devil will use. Who gets to determine whether you are sinning with a high hand against the authority of God? Because if it's the Pope that's determining that, then you have a real problem. And of course, that's what it's going to be. But why did I show you this? Because there is proof that history is repeating. Here's one more. This is from Time magazine. This is, again, from a while ago. It's from 1961, but it's important to understand the context when you see these little blips, especially an atheist calling for people to be publicly flogged for disrespecting her Sunday. These are important spiritual blips. The spirit of Antichrist, the spirit of legalism, is inciting people and rallying people around a common morality. This is from Time magazine. The law, Blue Sunday. In pre-revolutionary times, any person who dared to do business or have fun on the Lord's Day could be fined, whipped, or locked up in the stocks. Each of the original 13 colonies had laws limiting Sunday activities in one way or another. Even today, every state except Alaska has its blue laws, so called because the New England Puritans, who started it all, adopted the color blue in opposition to the red emblem of British royalty. What has grown up is a legal crazy quilt. In New York, for example, saloons may uncork their Sunday bottles at 1 p.m., but Sunday baseball games may not begin until an hour later. In Pennsylvania, merchants may sell books on Sunday, but not records. In North Dakota, shoeshine boys may work on Sunday, but no one may buy shoe polish. It is hardly surprising that the blue laws are controversial. What is surprising is that only last week did the Supreme Court get around to ruling on their constitutionality. Remember, this is from 1960s. In two key tests, the court upheld the laws and turned down the argument that they violate the principle of separation of church and state. That is the key sentence from this article. The Supreme Court, which is mostly Catholic, and today it's mostly Catholic, and you'll see with the 10 Commandment thing that's going on, they want to be sued. These guys want to be sued so they can move it up to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court, being Catholic, can uphold legislation. This is what it's all about, folks. One more little paragraph from this article. Chief Justice Earl Warren admitted that the laws grew out of religious soil, but added that they now intend to promote national comfort more than a national church. Said he, quote, people of all religions and people with no religion regard Sunday as a time of family activity. Put that in your mind. That's a very important point. For late sleeping, for passive and active entertainments, for dining out and like. That's right. It's all about comfort, and really, what is it about? Family activity. The family is at the heart of this Sunday effort by the beast. That's why the beast is all about the family. They don't care about the family. They care that the family is attached to Sunday, because that's what's going to motivate people to participate. If you have a family that is going and saying, "Ooh, we got to go to church on Sunday. We have to rest at Sunday. That's the day of rest," and you are the odd one out. That's the point. That's why Jesus says, "I came to bring a sword to put a man against his son and a mother against her daughter," because the truth is objective and the truth divides between what is right and what is not right. But that's why the beast cares about the family. This is from Rolling Stone, and Rolling Stone has way too many ads. Let's talk about Charlie Kirk. This is from May of 2023 now. Charlie Kirk's turning point pivots to Christian nationalism. The organization founded to promote the free market sure is spending a lot of time promoting attacks on the separation of church and state. There's Charlie Kirk at a Christian nationalist prayer meeting type of thing. The right-wing powerhouse run by Charlie Kirk. Read full story. I can't. Anyway, we'll just read what we can, because it doesn't matter. The right-wing powerhouse run by Charlie Kirk began as a campus crusade for capitalism. Its mission, as recorded with the IRS since 2012, is to enlighten students about fiscal responsibility and the virtues of free markets. But in recent months, TPUSA has adopted a cause that's very different from foisting Milton Friedman on frat boys. And it goes on to talk about how, I don't know why, because when I highlighted this article, it didn't ask me to log in. Anyway, that's really stupid. But the point is, what's the point? They got them originally with something secular, like, economics and, free market and capitalism. And now they're showing their colors. Now, just like everybody else, folks, Candace Owens, she rallied all the black people away from democracy into, political outcomes. We need, political, better outcomes for black community to be more conservative. You're being deceived by the Democrats, that kind of thing. It was very political. Now Candace Owens, that she's gotten the following and she's reached a critical mass with her influence, now she is converted to Catholicism, and she's openly moral in everything that she talks about. We'll see a little video from her that she posted, which is very telling of what is to come towards the end of this. But nonetheless, same thing with Russell Brand. He was all about the New Age. He was all about, health and, exposing Big Pharma and all this stuff and the New World Order. And now he's gotten a following, critical mass, time to flip. And of course, he flips to Catholicism. And now he's talking about the Eucharist and praying the Rosary and the Hallow app. And all the people who followed him have no choice but to listen or unsubscribe. This is how they do it, folks. Same thing with Charlie Kirk. These people are Judas goats. They're Judas goats, and they each have their, little segment of the market that they're placed in. In fact, I didn't pull it up now, but I covered an article, like all these people like Charlie Kirk, Candace Owens, all these influencers got their, beginning at the same place. They really did. And they're placed in these different segments of the market with different avenues to work. And ultimately, what is the point? All roads lead to Rome. Whether you start in climate change or in politics or in finance, you're going to end up into a moral direction. Do you see what happens? All of these people I just listed off, Charlie Kirk, Candace Owens, Russell Brand, there's so many of them. There's just so many. I've got, like, look at my End Times episode, Jesuit Hollywood. Constant celebrity conversions. Look at Jordan Peterson. He's, at the time of this video, he's not yet Catholic, but his wife is Catholic, and he's all about, like, his shirts and clothing that he wears. They're very telling fashion statements. He's got like one with icons from Orthodoxy and Catholicism, and he's talking about things that are very much praising the beast system. All of these people have a segment of the market. And once there's a critical mass and their Jesuit masters tell them, okay, it's time, then they flip and they get moral, because everything is moving towards a moral reality, folks. The end is moral. You have to understand this. The end is moral. It's not secular. The Bible tells you the beast is going to be worshipped. That's a moral situation. And so everything is leading to a moral outcome. Everything is becoming moral. And when the whole world becomes moral and you refuse to go with that morality, then you will be persecuted, just like the Bible says. But anyway, Charlie Kirk, let's read a little more about him. Charlie, this is from 2022, a year before that. So this is a little bit before that, but interesting how things are coming. Look at the sequence of things. Turning Point USA first starts as a secular thing, and then you're going to see an article like this in 2022 where Charlie Kirk, well, we're beginning to keep the Sabbath. We'll read about this and see what they actually think. And then 2023, 2024, Turning Point USA is like really hardcore Christian nationalists now. You're going to see they're also one of the main people on Project 2025. But this is from 2022. Charlie Kirk and his wife begin keeping the Sabbath. And of course, I've highlighted some videos, I think, of him talking about this as well. He's very adamant about it, but he hasn't shown his teeth yet. He's still like, oh, you don't have to do it. But, this is what I do. And it's really important that you should do it. But you don't have to do it yet. Let's see what it says here. Did I highlight anything? Anyway, we'll read a little bit about it. Charlie Kirk is a co-founder of Turning Point USA, serving as its executive director since 2012. He is the CEO of Turning Point Action and Turning Point Faith, president of Turning Point Endowment, and a member of the Council for National Policy. That's an impressive list of accomplishments for a young man only 28 years old. However, there are other accomplishments much more noteworthy. Charlie is a Christian, and in May 2021, Kirk, he married Erica Franzwe, a conservative podcaster and Christian businesswoman from Arizona. According to a recent video podcast, after discovering this truth in the Bible, Charlie and his wife began keeping the Sabbath last year, and they keep it pretty seriously. Charlie turns his phone off on Friday night. Wait a minute, are we talking about the biblical Sabbath? Or are we talking about just a different kind of Sabbath? Because the Bible says the day begins at sunrise. Now, of course, people fight me on that, but you're fighting the truth. Watch my episode number 4 in my Sabbath series. There's plenty of evidence there, folks. The verses people use to support an evening Sabbath are very twisted. You're using verses like from Leviticus where it talks about the Day of Atonement beginning from evening to evening. The Day of Atonement is a Sabbath because it's a holiday and it's a particular, specified day that you do certain things on. It's a Sabbath, but it's not the Sabbath, the weekly Sabbath. So you have to learn your Bible, folks. The Bible has always reckoned the day from the morning. So if Charlie turns his phone off on Friday nights and puts it in a drawer and stays there until Sabbath is over, what does that mean? He's not celebrating the actual biblical Sabbath. He's doing Talmudic Judaism. And in one other place, I remember for some reason, whether it was an article or video, supposedly he turns off his phone Friday night and then, picks it back up Sunday morning or something. So he's got a very different approach to it. But you'll see he supports Project 2025, which is all about Sunday. He also spends time resting, reading the Bible, praying, and writing. Sometimes they go for walks. He says the Sabbath day is restorative and a gift to mankind, which is true. That is very true. Erica says there is something very powerful about obedience to Christ and honoring God with the Sabbath, she continues. There's so much spiritual warfare going on right now. It is palpable, and you can feel it in the rooms you walk into when you're watching the news that it's surrounding us. And the only way to fight back is with God's word. There you go. Telling you the truth. The only way to understand and make sense of it, life, is with God's word. And if you don't take the time to literally quiet your mind from the noise of life, you'll be inundated. From news articles to press releases to your friend doing something your family member's not allowing you to come to the holidays or whatever. It's really something special to be aligned with the Sabbath and God's word, and to be able to just take the time to just breathe, cut the noise, and just be in alignment with the Holy Spirit and know what your role is in all of this. Very good words. And if you just take them as they are, it's true and it's very good. However, very important that you understand that Charlie Kirk is in on it. And so is his wife, of course, by extension. Project 2025, I've covered this quite a bit. But here's the advisory board. Let's take a look. If you scroll all the way down through all of these people, just to give you an idea how many people are supporting this Project 2025. It's not some little shenanigan. Of course, it is shenanigans by the beast, but it is not anything small. There it is, Turning Point USA. Told you. So now put it together. Project 2025 on page 900, whatever, of their manifesto, which I've covered in my Sabbath series, has an item, an agenda item, as part of their, however many hundreds of recommendations they've given to the incoming conservative administration. And again, just proves to you that things are choreographed when something as involved as Project 2025 can make all these recommendations and plan for a conservative presidency. I mean, come on, folks. Everything is just choreographed and it's timed accordingly to meet their agenda of dark to light and back and forth. But nonetheless, Turning Point USA is one of the board members who supports Project 2025. Now, Project 2025 has an item there about the Sabbath, and of course, the Sabbath is defined as Sunday. And Charlie Kirk, who is the president of Turning Point USA, who says he keeps the Sabbath, supports an organization or a movement or whatever you want to call it that basically demands Sunday legislation. So you do the math. Okay, this is a good one. So 18 minutes and 22 to 24. This is a good one. This is a good video that's covering a couple very important things. So let's watch it. This is from Little Light Studios.
Sabbath laws and what exactly is a Sabbath law?
Well, perhaps we can hear it from himself. I've got a little clip here to play. This is from Jonathan Berry, who was the editor for Chapter 16 of Project 2025, which talked about the Sabbath.
But there are implications for social conservative values across many issues. One of the interesting proposals that you've laid out in Project 2025 handbook from Heritage is stuff around the Sabbath. Mm-hmm. What are some of the ideas that you have there?
Yes. So this is, it sounds controversial. Mm-hmm. In many respects, it is a return to something that basically always everyone ever had.
Mm-hmm. You mean a return to the Puritans finding you for every little thing you're doing, or flogging you, or even killing you if you were disobeying the authority of God? You mean a return to the centuries and centuries of persecution that the Catholic Church had to people who didn't want to obey and, kneel to the Pope and obey their Sunday mark? You mean that?
And it's specifically the idea of encouraging Sabbath rest through discouraging commerce on the.
Did you hear that? Encouraging Sabbath rest through discouraging commerce
on the Sabbath. The proposal that's in our book is amending the basic federal overtime law, Fair Labor Standards Act, to require that overtime be paid for all work done on the Sabbath.
Interesting.
Yes. Yeah. So I don't think.
There you go. They're all about the workers and workers' rights, and just want to make sure that you really get paid for your time if you are going to work on the Sabbath.
I don't think Congress has the authority to mandate like a national closing on the Sabbath.
Oh, they do, but it just takes a little warming up there of the culture to get to that point.
That was always a state decision to do that. But let me add.
Yeah, in 1888, they tried to do it. So look that up. Alonzo T. Jones was defending the move to try to make national Sunday laws.
It was always a state decision to do that.
They did it.
and yeah, I'm not saying this practice.
And remember, the Supreme Court in 1961 upheld that Sunday laws are okay.
This was uniform, homogenous, whatever, but very, very widely spread, and only recently in the last few decades have most states moved away from this. So this is, I think this is about as far as the federal government could properly go in this space. But it would be an encouragement, an inducement.
An inducement. Do you know what it means to induce somebody?
To rest, but really to kind of coordinate commercial activity for the other 6 days of the week, which is.
See, he said the quiet part out loud. An inducement to rest. I mean, to coordinate economic activity. Yeah, let's really, what is this about, folks? It's to mandate when you will rest. Only God can do that. Only God.
As long as we've had Sabbatarian civilization, beginning in Israel and continuing into Christendom. This is something that's been increasingly a part of the rhythm of civic life. Most importantly, for people to have space to worship and honor God, and secondly, to have times of communal rest with their families and with their communities.
And that was always on the seventh day. And in fact, even the early Christians kept the seventh day. They met on every day of the week. But Saturday, or I should say the seventh day, because the calendar was a little different at the time, but the seventh day was always the Sabbath. It is the Catholic Church through Constantine that changed everything to Sunday and rearranged the order of the days. This is an interesting video. There's another one here, let's say 22, if I can get it. Let's see.
True, and I want to follow the scriptures.
These guys aren't alone. I've got a few more clips here I was going to show you. This is Dr. Chad Pecknold from the Catholic University of America, and he says it a little bit more explicitly.
So here I want to propose, as a bulwark, as a make-weight, as a condition for addressing material questions in a non-materialist way, a public orientation to God then reflected where? Reflected in concrete ways, in national holidays, in civic liturgies, in laws.
Civic liturgies. Well, the liturgy is a word for something that the Orthodox and Catholics celebrate. That's an important point.
Sabbath laws,
Sabbath
Sunday
laws.
laws that would require a cessation of what? Commerce.
Now, if you guys go
Commerce, cessation of commerce. You have two people now telling you the same thing.
National Conservatism, which they're big liberal think tank as well. One of the books that they're promoting recently is The Case for Christian Nationalism by a PhD author, Stephen Wolfe. He's been interviewed here recently. I'm sure you guys might have seen some of his clips here, but I've got a couple of them here that highlight the direction that he's willing to go with this.
He's kind of crazy.
Right? Let's take a look.
So how do you order people, how do you order Christians to eternal life? Well, you, in an outward way, you do what you can so that they can worship God.
You are not the one ordering Christians to eternal life. God has predestined who he's going to save from before time began, and he's given those people to Christ. We are called to participate in that plan, but that plan will be successful without your efforts. And that is the profound truth. But because these people are deceived on salvation, they are synergists. And of course, synergism is the salvation of Rome. Whether you reject the sacramental system or not, what really matters is whether you reject synergism, folks. Synergism is Rome's version of salvation. It's the mystery religion that you have to cooperate with God, and God is sitting there hoping you'll make the right choice, and you've got a part to play. Otherwise, it's not going to happen. That's synergism. And of course, these people who are Christian nationalists are all synergists, that we need to do something. Otherwise, Jesus can't return. This is the problem.
And worship God, and the church can administer word and sacrament. And how, in particular, how would you do that? You'd have Sabbath laws, and Sabbath laws are not simply to punish violations of fourth commandment.
Not yet.
But they provide but to provide the conditions in which people can worship God without distraction. That's the purpose.
That make it sound so.
Yeah, so we'll provide the conditions for you to basically do what we say, meaning no buy, no sell unless you participate in the system. Those are some conditions.
Good.
Yeah, but he takes it a little bit farther.
The best critique is basically that what you're doing is it's a de facto privileging of Christianity, because which religion has the Sabbath on Sunday? Well, it's Christianity, and so you're not doing it on Saturday. You're not doing so.
Christianity's Sabbath is on Saturday, the seventh day, not Sunday.
You're explicitly saying this is a Christian land, and we're going to all force you to obey some sort of Christian. And so that's the best critique. And I would just say, that's exactly what it does. I would just one of those things. I'm not going to reject their objection. I'm just going to affirm it. Yes.
Wow, we're forcing you.
There you go. I'm not going to reject what you say. You're right. Yeah, we are trying to force people to do this thing because this is a Christian country and it was founded as a Christian country. Pay attention, folks, because this stuff is going to become more and more relevant as time goes on. This is from The Guardian, and it's about Project 2025. The force behind Project 2025. Kevin Roberts has the roadmap for a second Trump term. Let's see the force behind Project 2025. The Cowboy Catholic head of the Heritage Foundation is on a mission to align the right behind Trumpism and has a plan in place to overturn the American government as it exists if Trump returns to power. This is from very recent, as the time of this video, July 2024. So the Cowboy Catholic that is head of this organization that, again, on page 900, whatever it is, I forget, 900 something, has an agenda item to implement a Sunday law led by a Catholic. Very important. I didn't highlight anything here, but I think you know what the point of this article was. Trump, this is from 2018, Trump administration embraces Heritage Foundation's policy recommendations. This is an interesting article because you see now he's kind of backing away from it because he doesn't want to have any negative stigma, but we know what Trump is about. 1 year into taking office, President Trump and his administration have embraced nearly 2/3 of the policy recommendations from the Heritage Foundation's Mandate for Leadership, i.e. Project 2025. The Mandate for Leadership series includes 5 individual publications totaling approximately 334 unique policy recommendations. This reminds me of all the laws and traditions of the rabbinic system, the same legalistic spirit. But anyway, moving on. Analysis completed by Heritage determined that 64% of the policy's prescriptions were included in Trump's budget, implemented through regulatory guidance or under consideration for action in accordance with the Heritage Foundation's original proposals. So in 2018, Trump was all about it. Now, typical politician. This is now July 5th, 2024. Trump seeks to distance himself from pro-Trump Project 2025. Former President Trump on Friday sought to distance himself from a closely aligned conservative group's plans to radically reshape the federal government and American life should the former president win a second term. In a post to his social media site, Trump claimed, quote, "I know nothing about Project 2025. Now, if you believe that, beachfront property. The name given to a playbook crafted by the Heritage Foundation to fill the executive branch with thousands of Trump loyalists and reorient its many agencies' missions around conservative ideals. I have no idea who is behind it." Yeah, right. Trump continued on Truth Social. "I disagree with some of the things they're saying, and some of the things they're saying are absolutely ridiculous and abysmal. Anything they do, I wish them luck, but I have nothing to do with them." Really, Trump? How come, like a few years ago, you were all about it and you embraced most of the recommendations? The post comes days after the president of the Heritage Foundation, Kevin Roberts, drew widespread backlash from Democrats for saying in an interview that the country was, quote, in the process of a second American Revolution, which will remain bloodless if the left allows it to be. Spoken like a true militant Catholic, ready to take over society with religion and bow the knee to the Pope, because he's probably a Knight of Malta member or a Jesuit, who knows what else he is. But these people are owned by the Pope, folks. They're owned, and they're doing the Pope's bidding to bring about the worship of the beast. Of course, Trump is playing all sides as usual, so don't take that don't take him seriously because he's always doing whatever suits the particular flow of the agenda at the time. Trump, I've covered Trump, watched my Trump video. There's so much evidence that he's bought and paid for by all of the typical actors, by the Zionists, by the papacy, by the Freemasons, by everybody you can be bought and paid for. He is a secret society member. He is the person that they've chosen to bring in the false light, the light of the new system, and people are frothing at the mouth for him. Anyway, this is from April 2024. Now let's look to Europe. See what's happening in Europe. European Parliamentary Breakfast on the Protection of a Work-Free Sunday in Europe. This is from European Sunday Alliance, which is kind of like Project 2025, but for Europe. I've covered them quite a bit, and it's very interesting. They recently released a manifesto in March I think it was March 8th. It was on the anniversary of Constantine's edict for the Venerable Day of the Sun, which of course is a statement of what they want to do. They want to go back to that situation. On April 10th, the European Sunday Alliance, a broad European coalition of trade unions, employees, associations, social non-governmental organizations, and church organizations campaigning for synchronized free time in Europe, held a European parliamentary breakfast on the protection of a work-free Sunday in the EU. The event was hosted by MEPs Miriam Lexman and Thomas Zdechowski and came ahead of the European elections in June. I wonder why. On the occasion of the European Day for a Work-Free Sunday on 3rd March, the members of the European Sunday Alliance had already launched an election manifesto that calls on European decision-makers to work at national and Brussels level to ensure that Sunday protection is as consistent as possible. A lot of interesting things happening in Europe. The event in the European Parliament served to highlight in particular how, from a different perspective, a protection of synchronized free time, in other words, a work-free Sunday, is a worthy matter, not least also as a tool to fight loneliness. There you go. Comfort, loneliness, the family, the environment. It also flags substantial challenges that, however, exist in practice on many fronts to protect synchronized free time, a work-free Sunday, and thus to fight loneliness. It stressed that with the employment patterns and working times becoming even more scattered, with social media and digitalization and online life becoming even more central, societies need to be careful that loneliness and individualization do not become a new normal in private and economic life, i.e. dark to light, the dark of this secular system that has separated us. We need time for the family again. We need time for the environment. We need time to connect. Well, what time is that? Well, that should be Sunday. There you go. That's the same day that the Pope says we should have it. Members of the European Sunday Alliance made clear loneliness is in many cases undesired by affected persons and therefore a negative matter. And a tool to fight this is to ensure synchronized free time. There you go. To protect a work-free Sunday. Since when is Sunday the tool to fight loneliness? The tool to fight loneliness is reading the gospel and realizing that you're never alone. Christ is with you. Not to mandate a day of rest that everybody needs to obey. Provide alternatives to solitary online life to ensure that retired people, workers, their families, their children can again spend more time together. Why? Because the world is being prepped for a Christian nationalist reality where the Sunday, the day of the sun, the Festivus, the festival, is going to be the central thing that people are rallying around, the day of rest and the day of festivity, the day of celebration of this false system and of ultimately worshiping the devil as your provider. You see, he comes dressed in good intentions, folks. Loneliness is very real. He's pointing to the truth. And we've been separated by all this social media. Very true. We live in a very lonely world. So he's pointing to the truth. Look at all these problems. I know just the solution. That solution is to obey me. Look, I'll provide you with rest. I'll provide you with the solution to this problem, which, of course, the problem was created by the beast to begin with, but nonetheless, this is how they work. So that was in April of this year. Oh, this is a good one, too. This is a video from these people, these European Sunday Alliance people. Let's see how fanatical they get.
Dear friends, as a long-term sponsor of the European Sunday Alliance, I'm proud to support the goal of ensuring the work-free Sunday. A synchronized week time of rest is very important in our fast-paced world. The work culture of modern society doesn't leave enough of time to enjoy with our loved ones. Children spend more and more time online. This not only affects their relationship with parents, grandparents, and siblings, but also seriously impacts their development and mental health. Mental health of adults is at stake too. As a member of the Committee on Employment and Social Matters, I repeatedly call on better work-life balance and more quality time offline, time spent with family and friends. Therefore, on the occasion of the European Day for Work-Free Sunday, I encourage all stakeholders to jointly continue our efforts to turn the idea of a synchronized day of rest into reality. It is essential for well-being of all citizens and better functioning societies.
Now, an interesting thing, I don't know if you caught it, but she said, to spend time offline, basically. Now, you wonder, eventually they're going to create a system that is digitized, that obviously you need to be online to use your money. You need to be online to, make transactions and everything. Everything needs to be digital, folks. And if the online component is going to come into this, see where this is going? Oh, you got to be offline, spend time with the family, i.e. do what we tell you to do. And if you don't, well, then you're going to lose all your online privileges. Do you understand how this works? They're going to create a system in which you will need to participate in order to be able to do everything, which is to access your money, to access your life is on those stupid little phones. It's amazing how they've done it, and that's just what the Bible predicted. But our lives are on these little phones, and one day you will have to prepare yourself mentally for the fact that you will turn that phone off and never turn it on again. So something to keep in mind. This is now from The Guardian, and it is from July 2024. Interesting thing happening with Greece. Greece introduces growth-oriented 6-day work week. Companies in countries worldwide may be toying with the idea of implementing shorter working weeks, but in Greece, employees have been told that henceforth they can put in a 6-day of labor in an unorthodox step aimed at turbocharging productivity. It's an interesting situation if you understand dark to light. After outpacing other Europeans in terms of economic growth, the nation once at the heart of the continent's worst financial crisis has bucked the trend again, introducing a 48-hour work week. The measure, decreed as barbaric by unions, takes effect on Monday. It makes no sense whatsoever, says Akis Sotiropoulos, an executive committee member of the civil servants union ADETI. When almost every other civilized country is enacting a 4-day work week, Greece decides to go the other way. That's right. Why is it going the other way, I wonder? That's something very interesting. And did I highlight anything else? No, that's all I highlighted. But that's the point, is Greece is going the other way. Now, we'll see how this plays out, but ultimately, again, if you understand dark to light, problem, reaction, solution, what is the desired solution? The desired solution is a mandated day of rest for Europe and the world, really. But here you have Greece going towards the direction of working people harder. The Greece is, I believe, the hardest as far as people working and time working. They have the hardest working people in all of Europe, meaning people work the most in Greece. I forget what the average working week there is, but it's higher than the rest of Europe. So they're pushing these people with a stressor. Obviously, it's a stressor. It doesn't make sense. Why would you work another 6 day of the week? It's productivity. We want to boost national gross domestic product, whatever. But really what's going on here is they're creating a dark to light situation. Because in the meantime, you have what? What did I just read to you? You had the European Sunday Alliance. You have all these pushes to the conservative in the European political elections. You have a push going in a different direction. So you have one going towards work. And then you have the European Sunday Alliance as the voice of reason, which of course is the arm of the papacy, saying we need to preserve Sunday as the day of rest. Well, add one and one together, what do you get? Greece is going to come to have a national Sunday law that will rest on Sunday because we need a Sunday. We need to protect Sunday rest. Look at all this labor laws that are happening. We need to have some way where the workers and the families are protected. Well, let's mandate now, in response to this, a Sunday legislation. This is something to watch, which is very interesting. All right, well, this next one is from voanews.com. It's very interesting because we've talked about this in the Sabbath series, and again, another thing to watch besides Sunday legislation is the change of a worldwide acceptance of the same calendar. I'll explain what I mean in just a second. This says Iran lawmakers back switch to Friday, Saturday weekend. This is from May of this year. Very interesting development. Iran's parliament approved changes to the work week for all government employees on Wednesday that would establish a 40-hour work week with a Friday, Saturday weekend. The legislation, which still requires a green light from the constitutional watchdog, the Guardian Council, would replace the existing 44-hour work week with a half-day Thursday and Friday, the Muslim day of prayer and rest, the only full day off. The change had been hotly debated, and 136 lawmakers voted in favor, with 66 against and 3 abstentions, and the official IRNA news agency said. Economists had warned that the alternative of a Thursday-Friday weekend risked deepening Iran's isolations by limiting most international transactions to 3 days per week. But some clerics accused supporters of a Friday-Saturday weekend of taking their lead from Judeo-Christian traditions of the Western world. Very interesting development. If you understand how isolated Iran is, and for them to be doing such a thing, it's truly profound. You'll see what I mean, why this is so important. However, lawmaker Moshe Pirati told Parliament Wednesday that leading Shiite cleric Ayatollah Javadi Armoli had raised no objection to Saturday as the weekend day. Now, why is this so significant, folks? Well, if we go to Wikipedia and we look up the week, and we go to this handy-dandy little chart, you can see a couple of color-coded things here, which is very important. And I've talked about this before. The blue has the Constantinian week, where Saturday is the 7th day of the week and Sunday is the 1st day of the week. The orange, or whatever this color is, tan, is where Sunday is the 7th day of the week and Monday is the 1st day of the week. So the orange is the calendar that existed before Constantine, because it was a little different order, I believe. Let me think. Saturday was the 7th day of the week. Saturday was the 1st day of the week before Constantine. So Sunday, actually no, never mind. Sunday was the 2nd day of the week. So it's not even that. It's not even the calendar before Constantine. It's just its own random calendar, basically, that Sunday is reckoned as the 7th day of the week. Yeah, because before Constantine, here's my point with all this, because if you understand history, you can see history repeating itself. What was the thing that prompted Constantine to create what he created, which is a standardized week? Well, you had 2 Roman calendars at the time. You had an 8-day calendar and you had a 7-day calendar. And it was causing a lot of confusion because the empire was, there's just too many ways to reckon the same thing. And so Constantine, from a political perspective, it made sense to standardize the week, but he standardized the calendar, got rid of the previous 8-day calendar, and officialized this new 7-day calendar where Sunday was the 1st day of the week. And that's the calendar we've kept largely as the whole world for the last 1,700 years. Now, of course, parts of the world do not keep that calendar. As you can see in this map again, the orange is where Sunday is the 7th day of the week. Constantine made Sunday the 1st day of the week, which is where you see in blue, this is the Constantinian calendar. And of course, in green, in the Muslim world, because they are Muslim, and Friday is their day of prayer and rest, the Friday was the 7th day of the week. That's a very unique thing to the Muslim world. And as you can see, it's not that many places. Even in Africa, it's not that many places, but it is in several places, especially Iran. And you can see Iran is a huge country. Of course, Iran is very influential in the Muslim world. So for Iran to suddenly flip and recognize the Constantinian calendar, because again, if Saturday is the 7th day of the week and it's the weekend, remember, for them, the weekend was Thursday, Friday. they're pushing to have a weekend of Friday, Saturday, meaning they're recognizing the Constantinian calendar. That's why they got accused by the opposition of being influenced by Judeo-Christian values. Of course, yeah, that's the Constantinian calendar. And why is that important? Why is that important? Because we've talked about this before, but if you look at this map, there's a problem with this map. How do I phrase this? If the beast wants to be worshipped, it has to have the same calendar throughout the world. Do you understand? Why is this important? Because God told you that the day of rest is on the seventh day. Now, that's very significant because it doesn't matter the name of the day. It could be called Sunday, it could be called Monday, it could be called Tuesday. It doesn't matter what it's called. If today the U.S. government, and let's say the whole world, said, you know what, from now on we're changing the order of the days again, and the seventh day is called Wednesday. Okay, well that's the day I'm resting on. I don't care. That's what God told me to do, is to rest on the seventh day. He didn't say rest on Saturday. He didn't say on Sunday or any of these name days, because first off, the Hebrews never had names for days. The planetary week is a pagan invention. So it doesn't matter what the name of the day is called. What matters is the sequence. 6 days you shall work, on the seventh day you shall rest. Why? Because on the seventh of the 7 days is when God blessed it. He rested. He rested in the tomb as Jesus Christ. The seventh day is what aligns you with God and with the mark of God. Of course, the devil is not going to let you do that. Do you see the problem for the devil? The devil has to unite the world into one calendar. Otherwise, it's a real problem, because the people who believe Sunday is the seventh day, and they're being told to rest on Sunday, they're actually resting on God's day, on the seventh day. Again, you got to get out of the mindset that the name of the day is what matters. It doesn't. It's the sequence of days. The devil does the opposite of what God does. God tells you, work for 6 days, rest for 1. Rest on the seventh day. The devil says, no, rest for 1, then work 6. You see, it's the opposite. Rest on the first day of the week, then work 6. Rather than working and being rewarded for that work and resting and culminating that week with rest, you rest first. You take the easy way out in the temptation and the comfort that's being offered to you right away, and then you have a 6 days of work and slavery. It's the inversion of the truth, folks. That's how you know that Sunday rest is the mark, because it's an inversion of what God told you. God told you work 6, rest 1. The devil says rest 1, work 6. But that is a real problem if you don't have people on the same calendar. And one of the things I told you in my Sabbath series was that we need to be watching this map and see developments where people are going to the Constantinian calendar. And for Iran to Iran is like central in the Muslim world. For them to acknowledge and have these waves of acknowledging the Constantinian sequence of days is huge. That is a huge, huge deal. It seems like just a random news story, but it's not, folks. You need to be watching for these types of stories where all of these different calendars are being reconciled into one calendar, because the devil is going to mandate a day of rest, and that will be Sunday. But Sunday has to be made the first day of the week in the whole world. Because if Sunday is the seventh day in these parts of the world, then people are resting the way God told them to rest, which is on the seventh day. See the problem for the devil? So the devil has to convert all these people to the Constantinian calendar. And so this is a very, very significant development, that Iran is now moving towards the Constantinian calendar, just like we looked at. This is from Catholic News Agency, May of 2024. German president laments church's diminished role at Catholics' Day. Of course, there's a lot of dark to light going on with Germany and the church there, so it's very interesting what's happening. Amid an exodus from Catholicism and ongoing struggles over the controversial German synodal way, Both Pope Francis and the German president addressed participants at a national Catholic event underway in Germany this week. Speaking at the opening of the Katholikentag in central German town Erfurt on Wednesday, President Frank-Walter Steinmeier decried the church's diminishing role and standing in German society. We need more church power in government. But wait, it gets better. The German president called for a self-critical debate about countering indifference to religion and growing alienation from institutions. Are the churches failing to inspire us? Is their message too quiet, too neutral, too nondescript? Maybe we should be a little less quiet. Steinmeier, a Protestant, told you it gets better, noted that committed Catholics are among the most sturdy pillars of our democratic society rooted in freedom. Now, if you believe this man is a Protestant and not a Jesuit operative or a spy or a secret convert or who knows what else he is, a secret society member, then again, I have some beachfront property for you in Phoenix in the dead of summer. It's great to be here. Therefore, it was all the more regrettable that the churches are seeing people's support and trust fall away on such a scale. So you have a Protestant, in quotation marks, pleading with you to have more institutionalization in society. We need more union of church and state. Look at these Catholics. They're the pillars of our society. A Protestant telling you that. That should tell you everything, folks. This is from July 6th, 2024. I've wondered about how they're going to work all of this liberal stuff in the UK, because the UK just recently flipped to the left. Or I should say, they voted in left. I shouldn't say flipped, because there's still a lot of conservatives there that want to move the needle to the right. But nonetheless, the left won. And the question is, how are they going to? We know what the outcome is, and the outcome is it's coming up, folks. You don't have another 20, 30, 40 years of this clown show. It's coming up. And so the question is, how are these people going to work the leftist angle to achieve the same result? And here is a hint. This is from International News World. Meet Keir Starmer's Jewish wife, bringing Shabbat to number 10 Downing Street. Victoria Starmer, a Jewish woman with rich cultural heritage and deep-rooted traditions, is poised to become the UK's First Lady. Intertwined with her Jewish upbringing, her life story plays a significant role in shaping the values and practices of her family. From regularly observing the Sabbath, to maintaining strong connections with the Jewish community, Victoria's influence extends beyond the domestic sphere into her husband, Labour leader Keir Starmer's political career. As Keir stands on the brink of becoming the next Prime Minister, Victoria's steadfast commitment to her faith and cultural traditions, as well as her involvement in combating anti-Semitism, emphasizes the unique role she will play as the new First Lady of the UK. That's right, the unique role. Such a unique role she must play. And of course, they mention the Sabbath for a reason. So this is an interesting situation that will need to be monitored, which is, again, how will they use this leftist swing? Like France recently, they swung to the left, even though they were swinging to the right. So that's an interesting little dialectic they're running over there. And the question is, how are they going to use these things? Which we know the outcome, folks. Everybody's swinging to the right. Christian nationalism is rising. America is going to be the first place where all this stuff really kicks in, and it's going to be exported to the rest of the world. The question is, how are they going to use these little oppositions to really ultimately come to the same goal, which is Sunday rest and Sunday obedience? And it's interesting. So this is something to watch. These leftist leaning places in Europe, even though Europe is now swinging to the right, there's these little pockets, right, of the left. The question is, how are they going to use it? So make sure you pay attention to that, because they're going to use it somehow, for sure. This is from Frontiersman. Oh, where did you go? Did you take my article away? There we go. We Delight on Sunday. This is May 6, 2024, by Amy Reese Faith. What do you do on Sunday? Maybe the better question is, what do you not do on Sunday? Growing up, I heard a lot of ways people spend the last day of their weekend. This is another subtle deception by the devil. The weekend, that's right, the weekend, meaning the end of the week is Sunday, when it's really not. Sunday is the first day of the week. But it makes you feel like that's the last day, so that's when I can finally unwind and rest. It took me a good, a couple months of really practicing the Sabbath to get out of that programming. We're talking, 30, 35 years of programming to where Sunday was the day of the weekend. It's the end of the weekend. That's the time when you actually can finally rest and unwind. Well, no, Sunday is the first day of the week, folks. The weekend is actually Friday, Saturday. But anyway, moving on. Some people could do anything as long as they wore their Sunday best. Others went to church and then went on with their lives as usual. Some believed they shouldn't work on Sunday, so they go out to eat and tip their servers well as a thank you for allowing them to observe the Sabbath. But the Sabbath isn't Sunday, it's Saturday. What I've come to realize is the Sabbath observance is not a one-size-fits-all. In April 2015, President Russell M. Nelson, the prophet of the Church of Mormons, was intrigued by the words of Isaiah, who called the Sabbath a delight. He's very intrigued. While President Nelson continues to describe how he'd found the Sabbath to be a delight, again, for them, the Sabbath here is Sunday, I still wondered what that meant for me. Did it mean I could take my kids to get donuts after church or to go for a long drive to the peninsula? Ross Gay's The Book of Delights helped me clarify my thoughts. Ross Gay suggests that a delight means of the light. So all he can think is that a delight is something that comes in the darkness and brings a little light and chases the darkness away. That's right. It's going to be the dark of the secular system that is going to be chased away by the false light of the papacy. For the first time, the Sabbath being a delight made sense. Like all things, it came back to a relationship with Christ. The Sabbath wasn't meant to be a time to worry excessively about the do's and don'ts, but to put the worries aside and focus on the light. Whose light are we talking about? The light of the Catholic Church and their false Christ, or the light of the Bible? We know that Christ is the light, and if the Sabbath is a time to break through the darkness and let a little light in, then it's a time to reflect and build a stronger relationship with Jesus, which, again, on face value, I agree with this. It's true, but of course, the way she's coming at it is from a very deceived perspective. And why I read this to you is this is exactly what you're going to hear more and more of, folks. It sounds so good on the surface and so true, but the context is what matters. It is the context of what she's saying. When she says Sabbath, she doesn't mean Sabbath. She means Sunday, i.e. Rome's day. So all of these things, when they're applied to that context, suddenly take on a very different meaning. And you're obeying the false light, even though on face value, if you just take them for what they are, they're good. It's good wording. But again, what is the context? The context is everything. A little bit more here. We should look at Sunday as a delight, a treat at the end of the week. See how that works? What did I just say about programming you with the subtle subversion of the weekend to where Sunday is the end and it's, oh, finally I'm here at Sunday. No, Sunday's the beginning. Ever since celebrating the Sabbath, Sundays for me are hectic because that's when I catch up with everything. That I, of course, don't do any work on Saturday, so Sunday hit the ground running. And an opportunity for rejuvenation for the next. The Sabbath is the delight that chases away some of the darkness of our regular turmoil as we build stronger relationships and connection with Jesus Christ. After all, what is the Lord if he's not our light? True. What is the Lord if he's not our light? The Lord obeyed the Sabbath on the seventh day, and he said he's Lord of the Sabbath, and the Sabbath was made for mankind. So who are you to say that the Sabbath is on Sunday if God is the Lord of the Sabbath and that Sabbath has never changed since it began? This is the problem. Here we go. Here's another one. Earth Sabbath, July 20th, 2024. So if you want to be in the Earth Sabbath and march and protest against pollution and marching for equal rights, what is this? Is EarthSabbath.world is requesting people get involved in an Earth Sabbath march no matter where you live. We're adding a second day for an Earth Sabbath march. Today is March 8th, 2024, which, by the way, is a key word or a key number because that is the same day that the European Sunday Alliance launched their manifesto. That is also the same day that Constantine declared his Venerable Day of the Sun. So you have to understand these people use dates very selectively. I try to look up info on the person who did this. I can't find too much info. It's just this random site that's organizing people to do something, which is very strange. Anyway, today is March 8th, and we haven't seen so many too many marches organized for the April 7th, 2024 March date. However, we have seen an increase of visitors to our website in the last week. We are hoping visits will continue creating awareness for the Earth Sabbath March on July 20th. Our goal with trying to organize these marches is not to demand to call on governments to enforce people to rest one day out of the week, but rather just to create awareness of the need for a day of rest to give the planet a break and appeal to people's consciousness to choose to take individual action and to make the necessary lifestyle changes needed to give themselves and the planet a break. So again, synergism, this is what is being taught to you here. You must do something in order to create the outcome, whereas God has told you that there is a definite amount of time before he returns. Of course, he doesn't tell you exactly when he returns, but there are things that are going to happen. It's going to get worse. There's going to be signs and wonders. There's going to be natural disasters. There's going to be plagues, wars and rumors of wars. All of these things have been predetermined, folks. You cannot change that with your rallies and marches and protesting and voting. This is the illusion of the devil to wrap you in to his final deception. It's all synergistic. We support all different efforts of Sabbath rest that give the planet a rest as they support our belief in this Earth Sabbath movement. So it's an ecumenical type of thing. Everybody's invited. Doesn't matter if you're a Jew or a Muslim or a Christian. Whatever day you want to celebrate, that's great. Just take another day for the environment. And eventually, once people accept that, it's all going to default to Sunday because that's Laudato Si. The kids are demanding change to protect the planet for future generations. Remember when I covered in my dark to light climate change, the marriage of climate change and Christian nationalism? Who are they using for all of these grassroots movements? Who are they using? They're using the kids, the young people who are ignorant and easy to manipulate and they have lots of energy and they're hip and they're changing culture. That's who they're part of all these evangelical climate change action networks. Climate change has become a moral thing, and they're using morality and children and putting it in front of you so that you have the hardest time objecting to the agenda. Do you see the point? The devil is the most subtle being that God has ever made, folks. He's so clever. He's going to put the children and good intentions and loneliness and the family and the environment and all of these things in your face so that if you object to it, gosh, you look like such a sinner. You look like a horrible person if you object to this agenda. Earth Sabbath is a change in the right direction and something we can all participate in. Of course, it tells you all these different events that they're organizing. And again, you can't really find too much info on this. Like if you go about Earth Sabbath, there's like short videos, there's testimony. It's got his I support Earth Sabbath. Keeping the Christian Sabbath supports a weekly Sabbath. It doesn't really tell you much. It doesn't have a picture, doesn't tell you anything about who's starting this, which is a very interesting situation because that's a very clandestine operation going on to shape culture. This is from AP. If I can close all this stuff, 500,000 immigrants could eventually get U.S. citizenship under a sweeping new plan from Biden. It doesn't seem like it's related, but it actually is. Did I highlight anything here? I don't think I did, but what is the point of this? Well, dark to light, folks. What is happening with all this liberal opening of the borders and sending all of these Mexicans and people coming into America through the States? Well, these people are largely Catholic and they're very religious. They're very superstitious, whether they're Catholic or Protestant. Doesn't matter. They're charismatic. A lot of them are charismatic. A lot of them are Catholic. A lot of them have those roots and traditions. And now what do you see? You see a flood of these people. And then now they're being, path to citizenship and being integrated. What's the point? The point is to create a foundation that is ready to accept Catholic authority. And that's exactly why they're doing it. The light will use the dark. Everything the dark does, the light is going to use. This is the thing you need to realize. They're not in conflict. The conflict is illusion. They're actually complementary. But on the surface, it seems that they're conflicting with one another. Look, they're opening our borders and sending all these people through. Close the borders. Okay, give these people a path to citizenship. Oh, now they're Catholic voters, and now they're ready to vote for Catholic days and Catholic principles. It's all working together, folks. That's what you have to realize. This is from townhall.com. Now we're getting into some good stuff. Here's which state just became the first in the nation to require the Ten Commandments posted in classrooms. June 20th, 2024. Of course, everybody knows about this now. The Louisiana governor, Jeff Landry, signed a bill into law on Wednesday requiring the Ten Commandments to be posted in all schools, classrooms, making the Pelican State the first in the nation to do so, and it will start a trend. The law requires a poster-sized display of the commandments in large, easily readable font in all public classrooms in the state from elementary school up to university level. Louisiana Attorney General Liz Murrill said she looks forward to defending it in court. The Ten Commandments are pretty simple. Don't kill, don't steal, cheat on your wife, etc. But they are also important to our country's foundations. Yeah, remember the Puritans? She said on X, Moses, who you may recall brought the Ten Commandments down from Mount Sinai, appears 8 times in carvings that ring the United States Supreme Court Great Hall ceiling. I look forward to defending the law. Of course she does, because she knows the Supreme Court is Catholic, and that's their goal with this dialectic, is to bring it to the Supreme Court level so that it can become a national situation. Whether that's going to be mandated by the states or not, look, the beast is going to find a way to do it. And it's going to seem very natural, and it's going to seem very logical and good. Let's talk a little bit about Trump here. Trump says remaining Bitcoin must be made in the U.S. I love these articles because Trump was rejecting Bitcoin. Now he's all for it. Typical flip-flop. Former President Trump on Wednesday this is from June 12th, 2024. Very recent. Former President Trump on Wednesday pushed for all remaining Bitcoin to be mined in the United States, marking his latest shift in support for the crypto industry. I wonder why. We want all remaining Bitcoin to be made in the USA. It will help us be energy dominant, Trump wrote Wednesday on Truth Social. There he goes. He goes from, oh, Bitcoin's a scam to now USA, USA, USA. And people just go with it, man. People don't see that when he does these flip-flops, that tells you he has no integrity and he's just being bought and paid for by his masters. But of course, tell that to any Trump supporter and they just get crazy. This is also recent from June 15th. Donald Trump flips on crypto from scam to building a crypto army. In a sharp reversal, former President Trump has embraced the cryptocurrencies he once reviled, looking to outflank rivals Joe Biden and Robert F. Kennedy among the technology's devoted young fan base and its deep-pocketed executives. There you go. That's what it's all about. But it's more than that, because Trump is an agent of the beast, and he has to bring about this digital system. Hours after meeting with Bitcoin miners at his Mar-a-Lago estate in Florida on Wednesday, the former president said on his Truth social media platform that cryptocurrency users should vote for Trump because he will stand up to Biden's hatred of Bitcoin. So disgusting. The declaration came after weeks of concerted outreach to crypto enthusiasts and the people leading burgeoning industry, and it already seems to be paying off. One Bitcoin mining executive who met with Trump told CNBC that his industry has committed to raising over $100 million and turning out more than 5 million voters to help Trump this fall. But just a few years ago, when Trump was in the White House, he made his thoughts on Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies very clear. Quote, I am not a fan of Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies, which are not money and whose value is highly volatile and based on thin air, he said in a series of social media posts in 2019 while he was still in office. Unregulated crypto assets can facilitate unlawful behavior, including drug trade and other illegal activity. There you go. But now that it's in season, vote for Trump. We're going to do crypto. It's going to be great. Made in the USA, baby. Quote, we have only one real currency in the USA, Trump continued, and it will always stay that way. It is called the United States dollar. There you go. And suddenly, modern day, he's flipped. Trump maintained that position after he left office, and as recently as 2021, when he told Fox Business in one interview that Bitcoin just seems like a scam. In another interview with the network, he said cryptocurrencies seem like a disaster waiting to happen. I don't think we should have all of the Bitcoins of the world out there. I think they should regulate them very, very high, Trump told Fox Business in August 2021. So just a few years ago. 3 months ago in March, Trump told CNBC that his thinking had changed a bit as Bitcoin's price rebounded after a series of scandals and setbacks. saying crypto was becoming increasingly entrenched and that he was not sure I'd want to take it away at this point. But by May, Trump had completed his evolution to become a full-throated evangelist of cryptocurrencies in the run-up to the Libertarian Party's National Convention in Washington, where both he and Kennedy spoke. In a speech to the Libertarians that was frequently interrupted by boos and jeers, Trump earned applause for vowing to stop Joe Biden's crusade to crush crypto. Now suddenly he's the hero that's helping you with your crypto. Just fascinating. I will ensure that the future of crypto and Bitcoin will be made in the USA, not driven overseas. I will support the right to self-custody to the nation's 50 million crypto holders. With your vote, I will keep Elizabeth Warren and her goons away from your Bitcoin, dark to light. And I will never allow the creation of a central bank digital currency. Yeah, right. Yeah, right. That's what this is all about, folks. Because mining requires enormous amounts of energy, Trump now portrays crypto as a national emergency security issue, including for the fossil fuels industry that he has promised to defend. His campaign also announced it would become the first major presidential campaign in history to accept donations in cryptocurrency, vowing to build a crypto army, moving the campaign to victory on November 5th. So this is what it's all about, folks. Now, again, if you understand the role of Trump, the direction of history, what the Bible tells you, no buy, no sell, it requires a digital system. Trump is flip-flopping just like he flip-flopped on a lot of things. And ultimately, he's going to bring this system to a head and have a digital currency, whether it's going to be a digital dollar or it's going to be some decentralized but centralized situation. Are you kidding me? If you've ever actually used crypto, I have plenty of wallets. Not that I have done much with crypto, but I have learned enough about it to realize like it's way more controlled. It's not decentralized, folks. It's not like this. Let me put it to you this way. If you've never used crypto, if you've used crypto, you know what I'm talking about. But even if you've never used crypto, you have to go through so many hoops and obstacle courses to use your wallets. You have to identify yourself like crazy. You have to put if you do KYC identification, IDs, sometimes social security number, you have to do all kinds of things to log in and have a wallet. And of course, that wallet is tied to your transactions on blockchain. The blockchain has a record of everything you've ever done. And it's tied to your identity. It's not an anonymous system. The only way crypto would truly be anonymous and decentralized is if you could log into your wallet without having to identify yourself. And it would be truly anonymous. And there'd be no way to track your transactions to a particular profile that you've KYC'd yourself. And every time you open your crypto wallet, you have to, do some sort of second factor authentication, which, by the way, timestamps your location because it proves you were there in that particular moment when you identified yourself to log into your wallet. It's way more controlled and centralized than people realize. So crypto is a scam. It's just one giant Ponzi scheme, but it's designed as a dark to light. This was all dark, dark, dark. Now the Democrats are coming after it. Now Trump is going to come in and be your savior and protect your sovereign right to have a digital currency. See where this is going? And then, of course, they're going to have a digital currency eventually, and that digital currency will be matched to a profile, to your behavior, and to your compliance. This is the future, folks. You can't get out of it. And of course, there are other articles to prove this. This is an interview from the Corbett Report. James Corbett predicts the CBDC rollout on Reality Check Radio. I just want to read a little bit about this. Brennan, okay, we've been talking a lot about CBDCs. There's a feeling that it's coming, it's imminent. Is that what you think? This, by the way, is from June 20th of 2024. Corbett, I think it is inevitable. In fact, it's already underway in a lot of important respects. The only thing that needs to be done, I think, at this point is to effectively sell them to the public. Do you understand? Assuming we are talking about all retail CBDCs, central bank digital currencies. Because as your audience may or may not know, there are at least two monetary circuits that are operating on the national level. One of which is the retail monetary circuit, which is the bank money that you and I and other people use in their daily transactions, and that they keep at the bank. But where does that bank keep its money? Well, it keeps it in reserves at the national bank. And he goes on to talk about basically his monetary system. But what's the point of this interview is that, and you can watch it yourself, I put it in the link in the references, that people are very clear that this is the trajectory of history. CBDCs, whether they're going to be, how they're going to be implemented is a different story. But if or not, that's no question. We are moving towards a digital economy. Crypto was designed, look, you got to remember everything is dark to light. These people constantly use dark to light. Crypto was designed to create some darkness. It's true that crypto facilitates illegal activities. And even though all the things I described with identifying yourself, it's still, you can get away with a lot of different things there. That's a dark to which the communist globalist agenda responded with CBDCs. We need to create CBDCs because otherwise crypto is, just eating into our situation. We need to get with the program. And of course, the nationalists like Trump say, well, no, CBDCs, I'll never create CBDCs, but I'm going to protect we're going to nationalize crypto. See the point? You see the ping pong and getting to the final solution? You're going to have a digital currency. You can't avoid that. Everything's going to be digital. The question is, how is it going to shape up? That's something to speculate on and watch, but it's going to be digital. Everything's going to be digital. There's not going to be any more physical cash. Unless you're looking at a bartering system between believers, which that will very likely happen, but there will not be any more physical money. And all of these things have just ping-ponged off of each other to bring people to let me put it this way, to the solution that seems natural. Again, at first it was Bitcoin, and Bitcoin facilitated a lot of very ugly things. And it took away from the economy, and it facilitated illegal activities. Okay, that's a dark. We need the false light solution, which is the CBDCs. But that's just another false light. It's a distraction so that people like Trump, who's a nationalist, can come in and say, no, we're not going to do all that communist stuff. Don't worry. We're going to nationalize crypto so you can keep your digital currency. Yay, we can keep our digital currency. Well, wait a minute. What you're agreeing to is a system that can track every single one of your behaviors. Do you get the point? You're agreeing to a system and you think that you're being saved from the big bad boogeyman of the CBDCs and rescued by the nationalist Trump, who's going to nationalize your Bitcoin. No, all he's doing is seducing you into accepting a digital system. That's all that's happening, folks. I mean, it's really just profound that people go along with this stuff. Here's another one on exactly what I was just talking about. This is from X, Sense Receptor. It's a tweet. They have to replace Biden. They have no choice. They have to. Trump is promoting digital ID and biometrics to deal with the immigration problem. Do not let the Republicans trick you into a control grid. Investment banker and former HUD official and founder of the Solari Report, Catherine Austin Filtz, describes for Greg Hunter how Democrats have to replace Biden as Trump is so far in the lead. Fitz notes, however, that Trump is promoting the digital ID and biometrics to deal with the immigration problem, and voters, should not let the Republicans trick them into a control grid. They, the Democratic Party, have to replace Biden. They have no choice. They have to. I think they've been really struggling to figure it out because there's a lot of internal politics here about who you replace him with and how that's going to work, Fitz says. She notes that the problem is the Republicans at this point and Trump are so far in the lead that the only person they can replace him with is somebody who's going to lose. So the question is, who's willing to do the run and pay hundreds of millions of dollars for a loss? Fitz cautions against becoming too enamored with Trump and the Republican Party. However, Trump is promoting the digital ID and biometrics to deal with the immigration problem. Don't let the Republicans trick you into a control grid, the investment banker says. Don't get tricked into canceling the Fed and end up with the BIS and IMF. Don't get tricked into biometrics and a digital ID to deal with the immigration problem that the federal government created that can absolutely address without all of those things because they're just tricking you into a control grid. Again, dark to light. We're going to get IDs on all these immigrants. Yeah, we need to do that. ID everybody. Well, wait a minute. Now that means you're going to be ID'd and controlled and basically evaluated every moment that you take. The investment banker goes on to further criticize Trump for furthering the control grid agenda with his cabinet picks. I hate to say it, if you look at Trump, who Trump put in the cabinet, he put into the cabinet a lot of people who were basically part of the syndicate that's trying to build the control grid. So before you get enthusiastic about the Republicans, you got to hold their feet to the fire that they better reverse the control grid. Fitz adds, she adds, demand that they reverse the control grid. Which is true, right? Trump is going to implement this system, folks. What did he tell the evangelicals at that convention recently? When I'm elected, I'm going to give you so much power that you've never had. Something like that. I forget. I'm misquoting it, but nonetheless, that was kind of the gist of it. You're going to have power that you've never even had before under me. And of course, people cheered like crazy. So what's going on here? Are we talking about less government? No, we're talking about more government. We're talking about government so involved in your life that it's telling you what to do morally and when to do it. That's what's going to happen, folks. Trump is part of the control system. This is from June 22nd, 2024. Newsweek, Ben Carson confronted on Donald Trump and the Ten Commandments. And if I can close this, there's a little piece here from this article. On Friday, Trump, the presumptive GOP 2024 presidential nominee, praised the new law and the idea of having the Ten Commandments displayed in schools and many other places. He wrote on his social media site, Truth Social, quote, I love the Ten Commandments in public schools, private schools, and many other places for that matter. Read it. How can we as a nation go wrong? This may be, in fact, the first major step in the revival of religion, which is desperately needed in our country. Bring back the Ten Commandments, MAGA 2024. In one statement, he's uniting church and state. What does politics and MAGA and a political candidate have to do with revival of religion? What is revival according to the Bible? Revival according to the Bible is getting back to obedience and faith. And if you look at all examples of revival, like Josiah's reforms, Nehemiah's reforms, it always had to do with obedience. It had to do with, false teachings of men and traditions. It didn't have to do with charismatic experiences or all the things you're seeing with the NAR and the Reawaken America tour and all of this nonsense going on. It had to do with getting back to the truth. And of course, this is not what's being in view here. This is about tradition. We need a revival of religion. What religion is that going to be, I wonder? This is from Yahoo News, Reuters, June 25th. Oklahoma's top court rejects establishment of first publicly funded Catholic school. Another interesting article. Again, you have to learn to read these things as pathways, not instances that happen, but pathways or blips that are basically waves that are moving in a different direction. Where is this going? That you are seeing this in mainstream news. What's going on here? Why is it being highlighted to you? Washington. The Oklahoma Supreme Court on Tuesday ruled that the state's approval for a publicly funded religious charter school is unconstitutional. The ruling followed a decision last year by an Oklahoma school board to approve the Catholic Church's application to create the first taxpayer-funded religious charter school in the U.S. The state attorney general then took the matter to court. St. Isidore will evangelize the Catholic faith as part of its school curriculum while sponsored by the state, the court said. The state's constitution mandates that public schools, including charter schools, be non-sectarian and prohibits the use of public money for the benefit or support of religious institutions. As a result, according to the court, the establishment of St. Isidore, which would have cost taxpayers $25.7 million over its first 5 years of operation, violates the state and federal law. Oklahoma Attorney General Gentner Drummond said the state's top court decision was a tremendous victory for religious liberty. Interesting, because usually that's a Catholic term. So I wonder what they're up to with this whole situation. The framers of the U.S. Constitution and those who drafted Oklahoma's Constitution clearly understood how best to protect religious freedom by preventing the state from sponsoring any religion at all, Drummond said in a statement. Church officials previously said that they hope the case will reach the U.S. Supreme Court. Do you understand? Where a 6-3 conservative majority, i.e. the Catholic, has taken an expansive view of religious rights, including 2 rulings since 2020 concerning schools in Maine and Montana. These situations, folks, when they are mainstream and highlighted to you, you have to understand, again, At the point we are in history right now, nothing is happening that you hear about it without an agenda. Nothing happens. Nothing is promoted in the news, certainly not in mainstream, that is not part of the agenda to bring the world to worship the beast. The question is it a dark? Is it a light? What's going on? What side, what angle are they playing? And when you see these situations like the Louisiana Ten Commandments law and this Catholic charter school trying to basically be legalized by the state, these things are very on purpose, little pings that they do to push the agenda one way or another because it causes conflict. And when you have conflict, you have two sides. And those two sides battle against each other. In the course of battle, the agenda is achieved and pushed forward more and more. So you have to understand this is one of those things, just like the Ten Commandments law, that we have to watch and see what do they do with the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court is getting more and more involved in moral decisions, which is a really interesting situation. This is interesting too. This is from June 26th, 2024. Jewish parents join lawsuit challenging Louisiana law requiring the Ten Commandments in schools. Boy, does this get interesting. 3 Jewish families are among a group of 9 Louisiana families with children in public schools who have filed a suit in federal court challenging a new state law that requires the Ten Commandments be displayed in public schools. The lawsuit, filed on the family's behalf by the Americans United for the Separation of Church and State, the American Civil Liberties Union, and the Freedom from Religion Foundation, argues that the law enacted last week violates the First Amendment. Specifically, the complaint says that the language of the law approves and prescribes one particular version of the Ten Commandments. Yeah, it does, to which many people do not subscribe, violating the Constitution's prohibitions on establishing an official religion and prohibiting free exercise of religion. So King of the South is getting very riled up by the King of the North, and you're seeing more and more brandishing of the swords at one another. And eventually the Bible tells you that the King of the North comes upon the King of the South and just overtakes him. We aren't there yet, but we're getting there. We're getting there. The lawsuit has a long-standing precedent on its side. In 1980, the U.S. Supreme Court ruled that a Kentucky state law mandating the Ten Commandments in all classrooms was unconstitutional. But Christian culture warriors, emboldened by the recent arrival of a solidly conservative majority on the court, i.e. Catholic, see an opportunity to have that ruling, Stone v. Graham, overturned. Now similar bills have been proposed recently in state houses in Texas, Utah, and Oklahoma. None of them have passed yet, although Texas Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick pledged days ago that he would make it happen. Louisiana's Republican governor, Jeff Landry, is the first to sign such a law, doing so last week as part of a state legislation against abortion rights and transgender inclusion that he said reflected his values as a Catholic. There it is. The guy who signed the law for the Ten Commandments, which is really the Catholic Ten Commandments, and you'll understand why. He's a Catholic, do you understand? And of course, these people who are in government and they're Catholic, they're Knights of Malta members. They're, Knights Templar. Of course, the Knights Templar aren't officially anymore, but, all these leapfrog organizations, Rosicrucians, they're all from the Knights Templar, folks. It's nothing new under the sun. The Knights Templar were disbanded because of their occult beliefs, and they leapfrogged in all kinds of places, and they started other secret societies. And so these people there's nothing new under the sun. They're part of the mystery religion, which on the surface, they are Catholic. Moving on, let me get this out of the way. Jewish families have played leading roles in religious liberty lawsuits challenging recent legislation by conservative state legislatures. Rabbis in a number of states have sued to block restrictions on abortion, for example, arguing that they are based in Christianity and violate the separation of church and state. Leave it to the rabbis to spearhead the Antichrist, the obvious Antichrist, the against Christ legislations. But they have their purpose because then you have the in place of Christ legislations come and show up, like what's happening now. The Ten Commandments given by God to Moses at Mount Sinai in the biblical book of Exodus and repeated with slight variations elsewhere in the Bible are revered by both Jews and Christians. But like the abortion lawsuits, the Louisiana lawsuit argues that the text of the Ten Commandments mandated by the law is a Christian version and does not match any version or translation found in the Jewish tradition. What they're pointing to here is that the wording includes that God rescued Israel from Egypt when he mentions the Sabbath in the Ten Commandments. But it also includes the fact that God was the creator of heaven and earth, is the creator, and rested on the seventh day. That's an important piece of the commandment. Of course, it's tied to the seventh day. And it doesn't say that in the listing that they're going to put up in these schools. Jews in different Christian denominations do number the commandments differently. Now, this is interesting. This link here, we're going to go to it next because this link goes to a Catholic website. This is the Times of Israel. And it's linking to a Catholic website because, again, what do they say? Jews in different Christian denominations. Well, what do you mean Christian denomination? You mean Catholics? Let's just be honest. Why do you avoid the word Catholic? Just say it outright. The version prescribed by the bill omits part of the first commandment of Judaism, the section of the first verse about God bringing the Israelites out of Egypt. I think that's it. Yeah. So let's look at this next part where we have a Catholic apologist, Diocese of Duluth. Why are there two different ways of numbering the Ten Commandments? Did you know that? Of course, the Catholics have their own way of numbering the Ten Commandments, and then this guy is going to justify it for you. And you'll see, again, I'm reading this to you so that you understand what is coming, folks. You need to understand how the enemy is arguing and presenting to you solutions. Because the enemy is the most subtle creature that God has ever made. And the voices of the enemy are indoctrinated very well in the enemy's way of speaking. So you have to get familiar with the arguments and the way that they're doing it. So far, you've seen that the enemy uses the family, loneliness, the environment, all these things that seem good to where if you reject the agenda, you seem like the crazy person. Now we're going from the theological perspective. This is written in January of 2023 by Father Nicholas Nelson. We're all familiar with the Ten Commandments. During the exodus from their slavery in Egypt, the Israelites are journeying to the Promised Land. At one point, Moses goes up to Mount Sinai and receives the Ten Commandments from God. What we may not realize is that while Scripture, Exodus 34:28, tells us that there are 10 of them, Scripture doesn't say which of the commandments given to Moses actually constitutes the 10 Commandments. It does really. I mean, if you read Exodus 20, it's there. All of our Bibles today have chapter numbers and verse numbers in addition to the names of the books of the Bible. We tend to think that the biblical writers themselves determined the chapters and verses as they wrote the sacred text. That is not the case. It wasn't until the 13th century that Cardinal Stephen Langton, Archbishop of Canterbury, divided up the Latin Vulgate into chapters, upon which all of the other modern Bibles have based their own numbering system. It was later in the 16th century that Robert Estienne, or Robert Stephanus, a Protestant layman, separated the Bible further into verses. So we can't just look at the book of Exodus and see the Ten Commandments nicely distinguished by their verses and easily know which are the Ten Commandments. This is wrong. We can and we will do so. We'll look at Exodus 20 for ourselves. But let's keep going. Our first record of the Ten Commandments being distinguished as the Ten Commandments comes from Origen in the 3rd century. Origen had some really crazy beliefs, so just to be aware, Origen's numbering is used today by the Orthodox churches and Reformed Protestant communities, including evangelical Christians. Later on, St. Augustine in the 5th century came up with a different numbering. St. Augustine's numbering is the numbering of Catholics and Lutherans use today. The difference in the two lists can be narrowed down to the question, how do you put 11 commandments into 10? There's not 11, folks, there's 10. But you're going to see all this snakery and philosophical gymnastics that they do for a very particular purpose. These are the 11 commandments. Number 1, you shall have no other gods before me. You shall not make for yourself a carved image or any likeness of anything. You shall not take the name of the Lord God in vain. Remember the Sabbath day, keep it holy. Honor your father and mother. You shall not murder. You shall not commit adultery. You shall not steal. You shall not bear false witness against your neighbor. You shall not covet your neighbor's wife. You shall not cover your neighbor's house or anything that is your neighbor's. Now, these last two, they have enumerated them when really they're one commandment. And you're going to see what they do here. It's a very clever sleight of hand. Origen, the Greek Fathers, the Orthodox churches, and the Reformed Protestant communities keep all of them separate except for 10 and 11. Catholics and Lutherans put the first two together and keep the rest separate. I want to defend the Catholic numbering of the Ten Commandments. First, why would we want to separate 10 and 11 and keep them as two distinct commandments? Well, as a good priest once said, there is a big difference between coveting your neighbor's lawnmower and coveting your neighbor's wife. So a good priest said, this clever little statement, but it doesn't matter what God said, that if you read the text plainly, it is all part of one commandment. Don't covet. That is the commandment. Don't covet. And he gives you examples. Wife, neighbor's goods, neighbor's donkey. There's many examples. But of course, a good priest told you that these should be separate. We even see in Jesus' teaching of the Sermon on the Mount, he says, if you have heard it said, you shall not commit adultery, but I say to you, anyone who looks at a woman with lustful intent has already committed adultery with her in his heart. Jesus doesn't make the same point with coveting another's goods. On the other hand, you see how clever, look, the devil knows the word of God very, very well, folks. You have to be familiar with this because you will find yourself in these types of arguments. You really will as time goes on. On the other hand, why would we want to put 1 and 2 together? Catholics have seen, you shall not make yourself a carved image or any likeness of anything, not as an absolute prohibition, but rather as an extension of the first commandment, and that we shouldn't create things and worship them as gods instead of the one true God. So, just sweep it into the first one so that nobody really understands that when you parade a statue of Mary and people are lighting candles and praying to her and kissing her and praying to her as an intercessor, that's not idolatry. No, it's not. It's not prohibited by the Ten Commandments. Some Protestants, especially those who number 1 and 2 separately, have no statues or images in their churches. And they disparage Catholics for having statues and images in their churches and homes. They point to this commandment and say, see, you're doing it wrong. You're disobeying the second commandment. You can't make any statues or images at all. But are they right? Is fabrication of anything prohibited by God? Slither, slither. No, that can't be the case. It can't be the case because just 5 chapters later in the book of Exodus, God actually commands Moses and the Israelites to build the Ark of the Covenant, and especially he commands them to make 2 cherubim of gold of hammered work, and shall you make them on the 2 ends of the mercy seat, make 1 cherub on one end and 1 cherub on the other end. Now, do you see how clever this argumentation is? That's why I highlighted this article. Do you see how absolutely subtle and cunning the snake is speaking to you through this man? It's absolutely so cunning. And of course, he's very deceived because he's part of the beast system. Who knows how deep he is? But either way, he's very deceived and he's speaking the snake's theology. So you see, Moses was allowed to build the Ark of the Covenant, so God doesn't mind if you build things. So you can build statues of Mary and venerate them. It's okay. Come on over. And change the commandments a little bit and everything's fine. Now we have a whole system of idolatry that seems to be sanctioned by God, which is, of course, is madness. Then later on in their journey through the desert, the snakes bite the Israelites who are complaining, so God gives them this remedy. The Lord said to Moses, make a fiery serpent and set it on a pole, and everyone who is bitten, when he sees it, shall live. So Moses made a bronze serpent and sent it on a pole. So there you go. You see, there's another example in Scripture. The Word of God says that you can build things, and, you can have reverence to them, right? No, not so much. The Ark of the Covenant, people, first off, couldn't even get close to the Ark of the Covenant. The high priest went in there one time of the year, and it had the presence of God. People did not go to the Ark of the Covenant, put little candles, kiss the Ark of the Covenant, worship, bow down to it, pray to the Ark of the Covenant. They did no such thing. The bronze serpent in the wilderness was something people looked at, and they were saved in that moment. And it was designed for a specific purpose because it tells you later in the New Testament, in fact, this is one of the types that Jesus himself acknowledges. Just as Moses lifted up the bronze serpent, so the Son of Man must be lifted up so that everybody who believes in him could be saved. It was a type. So it was not only limited in scope for that moment in time, it also was a type for something in the future. Moses did not drag that bronze serpent with him after the incident with the fiery serpents biting people. He didn't keep that serpent and people were like lighting candles to it, parading it around, putting little prayer, writings there or directing prayers toward it. They did no such thing. Are you kidding me? If Moses saw what Catholics do today, parading statues of Mary and doing all the things that they do with venerating statues and icons like the Orthodox Church, I can guarantee you he would think it's idolatry. No question about it, folks. So this is extremely clever, but if you have big ears, you can see right through it. The Ten Commandments are essential to our faith and the moral life we lead. I hope this short explainer gives you more confidence in why we number the Ten Commandments the way we do, and allows you to impress others at your next ecclesiastical cocktail party. Yes, do please impress them by knowing that the Catholic Church changed the law of God in fulfillment of the prophecies of Daniel. Daniel 7. And, of course, the little horn changes the times and the laws, and part of that is changing the time of the Sabbath and the law of the Sabbath. When do you rest? You rest on the seventh day, not on the first day, but according to the little horn, you rest on the first day. Very important. But most importantly, may we faithfully live by each and every one of the 10 commandments. That's right. The beast is telling you something that you need to hear, which is you need to obey the 10 commandments. But of course, whose version of the 10 commandments are we talking about? Are we talking about the Catholic Church's version, where there's a subtle transfer of the commandments? We're going to look actually at, let's pull this up, because I didn't initially plan on doing this, but I want to actually do it because I want to show you that it's actually very clear. There's no 11 commandments. Here we go. Exodus 20, the 10 commandments. Let's read them. Natural reading of the text. Let's see what happens. And God spoke all these words, saying, I am the Lord your God who brought you out of the land of Egypt, out of the house of slavery. You shall have no other gods before me. That is a complete statement. First commandment. You shall not make for yourself a carved image or any likeness of anything that is in heaven above, or that is in the earth beneath, or that is in the water under the earth. That is a second statement. Every time he says you, that is a command. Meaning we don't need verse numbers. I don't need to tell me Exodus 20 verse 4. I can simply read the text as it is, and the fact that he is saying, you shall do this, you shall do this, that delineates a new commandment. Do you understand? So the first one, where he says, I am the Lord your God who brought you out of the land of Egypt, out of the house of slavery, I am authenticating what I'm about to give you. I am the provider, the creator, the redeemer. Now, here we go. You shall have no other gods before me, commandment 1. You shall not make for yourselves a carved image, commandment 2. You shall not bow down to them and serve them, for I, the Lord your God, am a jealous God, visiting the iniquity of the fathers and the children to the third and the fourth generation of those who hate me, but showing steadfast love to those who love me and keep my commandments. Now, of course, in this case, it's an exception to the rule we just established. Because why? Because this is connecting to the previous statement. You shall not bow down to what? To them, to the idols that you've just made, that you've been commanded against. So this is a continuation of this initial commandment. Verse 7. And again, we don't need verse numbers, but they do help. You shall not take the name of the Lord your God in vain. Okay, now we have a different commandment. Commandment number 3. Verse 8. Remember the Sabbath day to keep it holy. 6 days you shall labor and do all your work, but on the seventh day is the Sabbath to the Lord your God. On it you shall not do any work, nor you, nor your son, your daughter, or your male servant, your female servant, your livestock, or the sojourner who is in your gates. For in 6 days the Lord made heaven and earth and the sea and all that is in them, i.e., who is the authority that is giving you this command? Not the Catholic Church, it's the Lord God. And rested on the seventh day. Therefore, the Lord blessed the Sabbath day and made it holy. So because God did X, Y, and Z, therefore you must do X, Y, and Z. That is the grounding authority for the Sabbath. And if you notice, the Sabbath has the most amount of text out of all these commands. It is very specific. So when they give you the 10 commandments, whether it's going to be the Catholic one with the Sabbath being number 3, because they merged 1 and 2, and separated 10 and 11 or whatever, or kept them separate, whether it's going to be that or it's going to be the Protestant version, the point is the Sabbath. Because the text, the full text of the Sabbath in the Bible, when it is given, if we're going to go by the law, folks, do you understand? If we're going to go by the law, what does the law say? Well, the law says in Exodus 20, verse 8 through 11, that it's the seventh day. Why? Because God is the creator. He's the authority that gives the law. But if you're saying the Sabbath is Sunday, the first day, you are acknowledging the authority of the Pope, because there is no such change of the Sabbath from Saturday to Sunday. Anyway, that's the fourth commandment. Now here's another statement, verse 12. Honor your father and your mother, and that your days may be long in the land of the Lord God is giving you. Okay. Number 6, you shall not murder. Number 7, you shall not commit adultery. Number 8, you shall not steal. Number 9, you shall not bear false witness against your neighbor. Exodus 20, verse 17. Now this is the part where they split it into 2 commandments, which is not true. Why do we know that? Because again, it starts with a you shall not. It's a command. Well, you shall not what? Covet your neighbor's house. You shall not covet your neighbor's wife, or his male servant, or his female servant, or his ox, or his donkey, or anything that is your neighbor's. This is a statement on coveting. Coveting is the sin. It doesn't matter to God if you covet a lawnmower or your neighbor's wife. No, it doesn't. Because why? Because sin is equal to death. If you sin, you die. The soul that sins shall die. Whether you coveted just a little bit or you coveted a lot, a sin is a sin. And in God's eyes, who is perfect and righteous, sin equals death. So there's no point, like that priest said, to make this distinction between, well, wife is different than this. But all of that is just semantics. Because why? Because they merged, they got rid of the second commandment, folks. Do you understand? The Catholic commandments, they got rid of the ones on idols, on images, because it's a religion of images. So they got rid of it, and so now we only got 9 commandments. Well, what are we going to do? Oh, let's make a philosophical reason to split this last commandment. You see, well, the wife is different than the ox and the servant, and so, well, if you go by that logic, then let's read it again. You shall not covet your neighbor's house. You shall not covet your neighbor's wife, or his male servant, or his female servant, or his ox, or his donkey, or anything that is your neighbor's. There's only 2 ways to read this if you're going to be consistent. There's the normal way, which is this is one statement about coveting, because you have various sins: murdering, adultery, stealing, false witness, coveting. Those are the main sins. Or if you're going to argue what you argue, well, it's different. The wife is different than the lawnmower. And so, okay, well, then guess what? You now have how many commandments here? Like 5 or 6 extra. You shall not cover your neighbor's house. Okay, that's 1. You shall not cover your neighbor's wife. That's 2. Male servant 3. His female servant 4. Ox 5. Donkey 6. Or anything that's your neighbor's 7. So if you're going to use that hermeneutic, Catholics, and say, well, there's a distinction between wife and, and coveting neighbor's goods. So, there's a distinction there. Well, the actual text reads many commands in that sense if you're going to use that hermeneutic. Do you understand? So they're inconsistent. They're just arbitrarily picking a division that supports their argument and that seems good and rational, but it's not, so that they can justify getting rid of the second commandment on images. That's the Catholic way of doing things. They're the most subtle. The snake is the most subtle being that God has ever made. And of course, he knows the word of God, folks. He knows the word of God. And so ultimately, there we go again with this thing, always expanding. I have to move it. Okay, there we go. I forget this thing always, if I minimize it, then I'm maximizing it. It has this error, probably because of my second monitor. But anyway, the point is this: the devil knows the scripture better than anybody. And so you have to know your word very, very well. And you have to know how to argue these things, because these types of conversations are going to be at the forefront of what's happening. A couple more here to go, then we'll wrap it up. This is July 1st, 2024. Oklahoma schools chief Bible in classrooms order inspired by Trump. Ryan Walters says his move is aimed at providing historical context in public schools and that he's confident the effort is legally sound, particularly given the current makeup of the Supreme Court. They know what's up. Oklahoma's top education official says a lot of inspiration for his order requiring public schools to integrate the Bible into classroom instruction came from the former president and soon-to-be official GOP nominee for the White House, Donald Trump. So his inspiration for demanding that public schools start educating the Bible came from Donald Trump. Isn't that something, folks? Now, here's the thing. As a Christian, I support kids learning the Bible, obviously, and so should you. But context is the word of the day, folks. And if you don't understand context, then you're very easily deceived, whether you're reading scripture or you're listening to people reading scripture to you or presenting theological arguments to you, like this man arguing that Bibles need to be in schools. Well, let me ask you a question. There's a lot of people who teach dispensationalism using the Bible. There's a lot of people who teach Christian nationalism using the Bible. There's a lot of people teaching, Christian Zionism, every prosperity, word of faith, charismatic. There are so many false teachings and teachers and prophets that are wolves in sheep's clothing that are using the Bible and weaponizing it very effectively to deceive many people. The Word of God is sharper than any two-edged sword. It really is. But if you are misusing it like the devil does, it does a lot of damage as well. It deceives people because the Word of God is absolute. That's why the devil appeals to the Word of God. When he tempted Jesus in the desert, he didn't tempt him with his own words. He tempted him with God's words because God is the absolute. And if you can twist what the absolute says in your favor and manipulate an agenda, then people will be believing you because you're using the absolute. Well, look, God said this. God told me this in a dream, or the Bible says this. So this is a real problem, folks. So if you understand that context, then reading a story like this should really perk your Fennec Fox ears up. This is a major problem. I do not support this at all because the question is, who is in charge of that curriculum? Who is in charge of telling the children what they believe about the Sabbath? Who is in charge about telling people or children what they believe about the involvement of politics and religion? Who's in charge of this curriculum? Sure, the Bible's great. Absolutely, kids should learn the Bible, but who is going to teach them the Bible and who is going to develop the curriculum? There's a lot of ways to teach the Bible. There's a lot of ways to read the Bible. And so ultimately, this is just another deception. And people think, yes, Bible back in schools. Oh, it's such a good thing. No, it's not. Not necessarily. Not in this climate, because the Bible warned you about exactly these things, where there's going to be an appearance of godliness, but denying the power thereof. Oh, here's a trailer. A couple more here. This is a trailer from, I don't know, it's a movie called God's Not Dead, In God We Trust. This is 13 days ago as of the time of this recording, which is in July.
If we ever forget that we're one nation under God, then we will be a nation going under.
Now more than ever, Christians must realize that we are being called to deliver hope to a country that's feeling hopeless. Faith begins where your comfort zone ends. We need to step out into that faith.
What does it mean to step out into that faith?
We're 6 weeks out from Election Day, and a lot of folks have lost hope in the future of our country.
We must maintain a wall of separation between church and state. Religion has no place in the public square.
Once they bankrupt our country, they will have complete control.
The King of the South is coming for your religion, so you better get involved, folks.
Where did we go wrong, Lord?
We need someone who can light a fire in the voters.
The preacher. He helped on those education hearings.
I've been hired to manage your campaign for Congress.
I'm not a politician.
If you don't take on this fight, we could lose everything.
I found someone to run against you.
Are we worried about a preacher?
My next guest is a candidate for Congress. You're going to get a lot of questions about your faith.
Well, maybe people are looking for more spiritual and moral leadership in Washington.
You're making God an easy target for them, Pastor.
God's not the target, Lottie. Our country is. God's just standing in their way.
I will not be made a fool of. I won't stop until your moral high ground crumbles beneath your feet.
You don't win unless you play by their rules.
I feel like I have two options. I can either do the things my faith asks me not to, or I lose this race. It's like God keeps putting these impossible mountains in front of me.
Perhaps God put those mountains in front of you to show that they can be moved.
The 7 mountains.
Please pray for David, guys.
In God we trust. This contest is about shaping the future of our nation.
Keep your boy in line. Because like his God, I can give it and I can take it away.
How do you know it's God?
Reverend Hill, your beliefs are a textbook example of Christian nationalism.
Whenever anyone of faith
There it is. Watch this.
promotes a policy that you don't like, you label them a Christian nationalist. We need to stand up. Send the message to Washington. Tell them you're not ready to give that power up. You have the power to change things. Not me, not him, you. In God we trust.
You can make the choice. Slither, slither. This is a movie that's coming out. Well, let's see, when is it coming out?
And without God, democracy will not and cannot long endure.
When's it coming out? September 12th. About 2 months before the election. So very well timed. And of course, what is the point? Oh my gosh. That bit about every time somebody does a legislation against you, you just call them a Christian nationalist. Like, do you realize what's going on? This is poking at this dialogue that's going on between the obvious rise in Christian nationalism, the left exposing it to you, the king of the South saying, look, these people are going to take over religion or a government with their religion, and they're exposing them to you just like the right is exposing the left, but nobody's paying attention to the left anymore. And of course, this is fighting back. This is the king of the North saying, no, Christian nationalism's okay. You're just using it as a hate word to accuse people when we just want to get back to good old tradition and family values. Gosh, such a fascinating. This is all just Jesuit theater, folks. If you understand the Jesuits are the ones who created theater, then you understand what's going on. This is Candace Owens. This is a post that she made. Let's see what she did.
All the God King Xerxes requires is this: a simple offering of earth and water, a token of Sparta's submission.
Submission. Now that's a bit of a problem.
Everybody's watching. Conservative Christians, libertarians, based moms.
This is blasphemy. This is madness.
The entire conservative movement.
This is Sparta!
So Christ is king, and we're going to kill you if you disagree. There you go. Pretty face of a Christian nationalist movement. Of course, Candace Owens was always meant to do what she's doing now. Now it's all in the open. She converted to Catholicism recently. And if you saw my, which one? Voluntas Dei es Catholica? The Will of God is Catholic episode. Check it out. You'll see a lot about her conversion there. It's very suspect. But nonetheless, what does she post? She's now very, very vocal. She's barking quite a lot. And very much about this Christ is King thing, dominionist theology that, you know what, Christian nationalism is a good thing. They lied to you about the Inquisition. You know, we got to return to all these good things. And, you know, Christ is King. And she posted a little clip from the 300 movie. And this guy basically killing the other dude, the Xerxes messenger, because he's not going to submit. Christ is King. And there you go. Kick you off into the pit of despair and die. Would Jesus do such a thing? Did Jesus ever advocate violence to spread the gospel? Ever? The answer is no. And so the question is, what spirit is guiding Candace Owens when she says that she feels at home converting to Catholicism, when she says that, you know, I really feel that God was leading me in this direction? Well, wait a minute. God would not lead you into the Catholic Church. God would lead you out of the Catholic Church. Revelation 18:4 says, get out of her, my people. So what spirit is guiding Candace Owens that she believes she's guiding by God, but she's posting these very militant Catholic things? This is the same spirit of the ages, folks, and that spirit is coming and bubbling to the surface. This is from the G7 summit that recently happened, and the Pope was there being marveled at.
In Italy promises to be a pivotal event in shaping a more sustainable future for our planet. As the world's leading economies gather, the agenda will focus on critical issues such as economic resilience, security, and ethical AI development.
i.e. how to monitor your behavior.
The esteemed participation of Pope Francis will lend a moral voice to discussions on ethical AI development and...
Why do we need a moral voice? Why is suddenly everything becoming a moral situation? Do you understand?
Global cooperation. Italy's diplomatic efforts will advocate for a ceasefire in Gaza and a reduction of tensions in the Middle East conflict. Italy is pushing for an ambitious coal phase-out by 2025, demonstrating its commitment to sustainable energy and environmental stewardship. The Italian presidency will prioritise the defence of the rules-based international system and engagement with developing nations and emerging economies. The summit's agenda will cover critical topics like stability in the Indo-Pacific region, cybersecurity, and the responsible development of artificial intelligence.
And of course, who's behind that? It is Pope. That is the point of all of this. I think there was going to be a little more here, but no, I don't think it covered. That's why I want to show you. It's just the Pope highlighted the G7. Of course, there's articles on this too, but look, the world is marveling after the beast, folks, and everything is becoming a moral issue. Do you understand? Everything's becoming a moral issue because through morality is how the beast owns everybody. The beast is above governments. It's above all these secular endeavors. The beast is the one that's giving the moral perspective. He's the authority that people are listening to. And by being the authority, the moral authority, he is over all of the governmental systems. A government is not going to tell another government what to do. But the Pope will tell everybody what to do because he's the moral authority. He's the one that people look to for moral advice and how should we do this morally. And of course, the morality of the beast is ultimately to be worshipped. So, kind of a lot to take in, I know. Hopefully this was a good, edifying first installment of this new segment. Like God, you have to understand that they create precedents and they use these precedents to appear justified in what they do. This is the dark to light dialectic. The dark happens, like we said with Bitcoin. Bitcoin emerged, creates a lot of problems that are recognizable. That makes a precedent for them to act and create a solution, which creates another precedent to create another solution. Initially, it's CBDCs to compete with crypto, because that's the globalist route. But now the nationalists are saying, no, we need to nationalize crypto. It's still digital currency, folks. In the end, you think you're being saved from one bad guy, but really you're just coming into the arms of another one. This is the dark to light, good cop, bad cop stuff, and people need to wake up from these things. All of these things are that I read to you today, we looked at, are just precedents so they can justify the mark of the beast and the persecution of people in the end times. And those people will be Sabbath keepers. People who cling to the word of God that I just read to you in Exodus 20, verses, was it 8? I think it was 8. I forget the exact verse. Yeah, 8 to 11 for the Sabbath. As 4 verses. Has the most written of any of the commandments. And of course, that's because the Sabbath identifies God as the one who is telling you whether to stand up or sit down. But if you listen to the authority of the Pope can tell you don't bear false witness, don't lie, don't cheat. So how do you know what the authority is that's telling you not to do these things? Because it's not rocket science to not lie, cheat, steal, or murder, or have adultery. That's not rocket science. That's built into our conscience. So how do you know who is the authority that's telling you what to do? Every king in history has had a moral code. Well, you know because of the Sabbath. The Sabbath authenticates God as the lawgiver. That's why it talks about God being the creator, being the provider, and the redeemer. It authenticates God as the one who is giving all of these laws. So now if the devil wants to be worshipped, he's going to create his own counterfeit law, his own counterfeit day of rest that authenticates him as the creator of the New World Order, as the provider of these benefits, and as the redeemer, because you won't be persecuted if you take the mark and you obey the devil. But this is where it's going, folks, and you have to realize that the mark of the beast is coming. So it's there, but it's not being enforced, really. We're now prepping the culture for it to be enforced. Satan was kicked out because of the cross and the atonement, and he was the accuser. He's the accuser of our brethren. Seems that he was the accuser of, other angels too, and also people. He was just the accuser. Watch my Satan series to learn more about the devil, and of course there's certain mysteries that we don't understand, but the devil was the accuser. And that means that he knew the Word of God very well. He knows the Word of God, and that means that legalism is the devil's expertise. He's the prosecutor, folks. He is the accuser. He knows exactly how to accuse you, meaning he's very proficient in the law and how to use the law from a position of hatred. Look at the Pharisees. The Pharisees, Jesus called the sons of the devil. Why? Because they sought to use the law to murder Jesus. Any opportunity they could use to accuse Jesus, and of course they couldn't in the end, They laid false accusations against him, but they tried to use the law all the time to accuse him so that they could murder him, which is the signature of the devil. The devil doesn't do anything that God doesn't allow. The devil uses the absolute justice of God as a way to legally murder people. Before we had an advocate, the devil accused people before God all the time. And God was revealing his mercy through those accusations, like with Job, which is obviously the best example. But legalism is Satan's expertise. And the spirit of Antichrist is also very legalistic, because synergism is legalistic. The spirit of Antichrist that's rising currently, and of course it's been around forever, but it's rising in things like the charismatic movement, which is very legalistic, ecumenism, New Age, love and light. New Age is all about legalism and doing certain rituals and traditions and, whatever, tarot cards and channeling. And it's legalism just repackaged. Personal growth, entrepreneurship, that's legalism. That's being fused into this whole Christian nationalist thing. Look at Life Surge. I've covered that before. And of course, nationalism and patriotism is all about the synergistic attitude that you need to do this and that. You need to vote. We need to do this and take responsibility over that in order to bring about the Seven Mountain Mandate and Christianized society so that Jesus can come. It's all legalism. It really is. Because legalism is about you doing the work and you obeying a strict set of rules. It's not about grace and faith and God obeying the rules perfectly on your behalf and paying your debt. It's about you doing it. You can be like God. You're the one who is sovereign. Legalism and the forbidden fruit, it's all intertwined. It really is. Now, Satan can't accuse you as a believer anymore because we have an advocate, but he will create a false system of worship so that he can lay an accusation against you. Of course, it's going to be an accusation that's worldly. It's not an accusation before God, and he knows that. But that's the point. You see, Satan was kicked out of his role as the accuser. And so he can't accuse you before God anymore if you have Jesus Christ. But he is going to create a system where he will accuse you in front of the world and exercise his worldly authority to destroy you if you reject. So this is the point. This is the final test. It will be an accusation. Of course, it's going to be a false accusation. It's not going to be an accusation that's legal, that is enforceable by God. Let me put it that way. So that's why Jesus says, fear not he who destroys the body, but he who can destroy both body and soul in hell. I.e., fear me, because I can destroy you at the resurrection. Don't fear the devil, who has authority to destroy your body in this world. And so this is what's going to happen. This false system is going to reward those who obey, and it's going to require resting on Sunday and acknowledging Satan as the provider, the creator, the redeemer. If all of this sounds crazy to you, watch my Sabbath series. It really, again, watch all those things I said at the beginning of this episode, the Great Delusion, the End Time series. All of those things are so edifying. Christian Nationalist playlist, Dark to Light playlist, all of them will be very edifying to you. Paul says in Romans 6, verse 16, that the one you obey is the one you're a slave to. Do you not know that if you present yourselves to anyone as obedient slaves, you are slaves of the one whom you obey, either of sin, which leads to death, or of obedience, which leads to righteousness? You are a slave of the one whom you obey. From the very beginning in Genesis to the very end in Revelation, there is one theme. Who do you obey? Do you obey the devil, or do you obey God? That is the point. And at the end, it's going to be the same test as at the beginning. You're going to be offered worldly comforts. You're going to be offered good things that seem reasonable and delightful in exchange for obedience. That's what the devil offered Eve, and that's why we fell out of our relationship with God. And this is the test at the end. As it was in the beginning, so it will be at the end. It's always been about obedience. The Ten Commandments will be the Catholic Ten Commandments. Again, whether that is the full-on altered version where they have gotten rid of the commandment on idols and they've split the last commandment into two, or whether it's the Protestant version where it's normal, like the number 4 is the Sabbath. Time will tell, but the point is that either way, it's going to be the Catholic version. Because number 4 identifies to you who the lawgiver is and how the Sabbath is meant to be observed, which is on the 7th day. It's always been on the 7th day. The law is unchanging, folks. We are not measured by our performance to the law. We are measured by our faith in Christ. But nonetheless, whether you have fruits of your faith is determined by the law. If you are claiming to be a born-again Christian and you're murdering, having adultery, stealing, bearing false witness, coveting all day, you are not a born-again Christian. So you have to use the law as a standard to see, do I have fruits of my faith? I'm not measured by the law in the sense of I'm not saved by the law, but I'm measured by the law. And if that's the case and you agree with that, then part of the law is commandment number 4, which is remember to keep the Sabbath day holy. And it's the only commandment that says remember, because it says that for a reason. God knows that people would forget it because he's decreed that. And especially for our generation, the Sabbath is the test. That's why it says remember, because you're going to be tested, folks. You saw how clever and wily that Catholic priest was arguing his way around and defending the Catholic version of the Ten Commandments. Unless you are more clever and wise as a serpent, then you will be deceived and not remember. You will forget. So remember to keep the Sabbath day holy. 6 days you shall work. On the 7th is a Sabbath to the Lord your God, because in 6 days the Lord created the heavens and the earth, and he rested on the 7th day and made it holy. That is the wording of the 4th commandment, which is not going to be present in all of this stuff that's coming back into schools and government buildings and so on. Everybody's all about, the 10 commandments. Wait a minute. What you're doing is you're letting the devil set up a false system to be able to accuse you falsely and persecute you. Do you understand what's happening? What the devil is doing? It is phenomenally wicked, because he is the most wicked. He's the most wicked, but also the most subtle being that God has ever created. If you obey Sunday, you are a slave to Rome, regardless of how much it looks like the 10 Commandments. I'm all about the 10 Commandments in the sense that, they're the perfect moral guidance that you could possibly ever have, expressed from the perfect mouth of God in such a perfect and simplified way. It's profound. And of course, again, they are a litmus test for whether you're a born-again Christian or not. Are you seeing fruits of your faith? But you have to realize that Rome has a counterfeit version of the 10 Commandments, and it will use the absolute authority of God as a mask to mask itself, coming to rescue you from the secular system with good intentions. Let's go back to the 10 Commandments, folks, back to morality. Forget all this tranny story hour stuff and, genetic or gender reassignment surgery. Let's go back to the 10 Commandments. Sounds reasonable. Sounds very reasonable. But whose version of the 10 Commandments are we going to? This is the thing. 2 Timothy chapter 3, verse 1 through 5 says, godlessness in the last days. Understand this, that in the last days there will come times of difficulty. For people will be lovers of self, lovers of money, proud, arrogant, abusive, disobedient to their parents, ungrateful, unholy, heartless, unappeasable, slanderous, without self-control. Does it remind you of that Candace Owens video that she just posted? Brutal, not loving good, treacherous, reckless, swollen with conceit, lovers of pleasure rather than lovers of God, having the appearance of godliness, but denying its power. Avoid such people. Now, up to verse 5, you could apply that to anything. Communist dystopia, Islamic caliphate, Zionist empire. You could apply it, to pretty much any sort of dark situation. But then he gives you an important qualifier, such an important qualifier, that changes everything that you've read, the context of it, from dark to light. What is the actual problem? Having an appearance of godliness, but denying its power. What is the power of God? Well, in other places, Paul says the power of God is the gospel to change the human heart. It is the power of God to save the soul. So these people will have an appearance of godliness, but they will deny the power, which is the gospel. Meaning you're going to see a counterfeit Christian reality at the end of time, where people will be lovers of money, proud, arrogant, abusive, heartless, brutal, not loving the good. That sounds like all of these militant Catholics, folks, who seem like they're godly, But in fact, they're very brutal and militant and ready with militant bloodlust to enforce the papal decrees. Just like they happened for hundreds and hundreds of years. You cannot forget that most of human history in the last 2,000 years has been a militant Christian, counterfeit Christian power determining what you will do and when you will do it, and persecuting those who rebel. The devil counterfeits God's methods to deceive you. God created dark and light. You have the darkness of sin leading to the light of the gospel. The devil uses dark and light to bring himself as a savior, as he does with all of these things, ultimately, which is what's happening now. The devil will present himself and his system as the solution, and people, by and large, will accept it. God sets precedents in what he does through historical happenings and prophecy. The devil uses false flags to set precedents so that he can accuse and justify himself. Again, the devil's not original. He just plays God. He thinks he's playing God. He's trying to be like God. But he does what he tries to do what God does so that he can ultimately be like God. Do you understand? God sets precedents through what he does. Through the prophecies, through various judgments that happen, he sets precedents so that there is a precedent, legal precedent, because God is consistent. The devil uses false flags as a precedent or a pretext to bring along the next solution, so that he's justified and therefore he can accuse legally, but it's really a false accusation because it's a worldly system. It's not true. It's a counterfeit precedent. That's how he does these situations, these dark to light, good cop, bad cop agendas. God created the devil as the enemy of the story, and the devil, especially in this church age, developed a dumb devil in the left, in the king of the south, for him to defeat and look like God. This is a profound revelation. The left is like a dumb devil. Do you understand? And so many people are falling for it. The left is the obvious, incompetent evil that's coming to get you with crickets and with trannies and with, oh my gosh, communism. And all these things are just so evil and we got to fight back. And it's like, do you really think the devil is that stupid? Do you think you're going to vote out the devil? You're going to vote out satanic secret societies with your vote, with your free will? Excuse me. My goodness. Do you really think you're going to be able to do that? The answer, of course, is no. It's an illusion. The devil created a dummy of himself that he can then come in and march as the false light and destroy. People say, oh, thank you for destroying the evil. Now we can worship you. This is what it's about, folks. God created the devil as the villain of the story so that God will get glory over the devil and reveal his wrath and his power and his supremacy. That's part of the role of evil. And of course, that's controversial for some people. So watch my series on the devil. But this is what's true. The devil counterfeits that, just like he counterfeits everything else that God does. He counterfeits the fact that God created him to get glory over him. So he created a false devil in the opposition of left and right, so that then the false light can conquer the dark and look like the Savior, look like God. Do you see how brilliant and brilliantly evil the devil is? And so many people are falling for it because they think, again, that evil is this obvious thing rather than what the Bible tells you, which is that it appears as an angel of light. Now, also interesting is that Christian nationalists, like dispensationalists, like Christian Zionists, often use the Old Testament to justify themselves. This is an important point to mention on this particular topic because a lot of people who are in Christian nationalism and dispensation, although now it's all one thing with the NAR, Zionism and dispensationalism and Christian nationalism are all just blending into one false Great Delusion. But anyway, all these people use the Old Testament and they use it, obviously they use it out of context. But the Old Testament was unique because there was no Messiah. There was a different situation in the Old Testament. Now, it seems obvious that there was no Messiah, and obviously, what's the point? Like, who What are you getting at? Well, the point is this. The context of the Old Testament, God was sharing his judicial authority with judges, kings, the nation of Israel. There were judicial things that needed to happen. Like when Joshua entered the promised land, they were ordered to kill the Canaanites and to spare nobody. That was God's authority, that he was judging these pagan tribes for all the heinous sins that they committed, sacrificing their children and orgies and all kinds of stuff. He's judging them. He has authority as the judge of the earth, and he is giving that authority, he's sharing it for this particular outcome with Joshua and the Israelites. Go and kill these people. This is my judgment on them. You have authority to do so because I'm the judge of the earth. I'm sentencing judgment. That is a unique situation to the Old Testament. The same as with the judges, with the kings, with everything else in the Old Testament, because there was no Messiah. Very, very important. The Israelites destroying the pagans coming and judging the Israelites, like Sennacherib, the king of Babylon. All these people were sharing authority. I should say, they were benefiting from God, sharing his authority in a particular matter to judge. Do you understand? It's very important. The New Testament is very different. It's a completely different reality. The Old Testament, Israel was a religio-political operation. It was a religio-political situation. Just like every other pagan system was a religio-political situation. God was demonstrating his power to all these other counterfeits of the fallen angels and these counterfeit pagan system and mystery religions through his religio-political system. It was a union of religion and politics, absolutely. But it was pure because God was at the head and he was the one directing things. Israel, Old Testament, also had a purpose because there was no Messiah. It meant that justice and wrath had to be dealt with very differently. Do you understand? God's wrath, there was no atonement for sins. There were judgments that needed to be carried out. There was a plan of salvation that needed to be typified. There were certain things that needed to happen in the Old Testament. As of the New Testament, everything changed. Why does it matter? Because John 5:22 says this. Jesus says, "For the Father judges no one, but has given all judgment to the Son, that all may honor the Son just as they honor the Father," which, by the way, is a proof text of deity. Whoever does not honor the Son does not honor the Father who sent him. So Jesus, being the Messiah, has been given all authority under heaven and earth to do judgment, to resurrect, to destroy, to create the new world anew. He is God, and he has all authority. That's a very, very significant shift from one system to another. As of the cross, you had God's wrath spent for the elect. There's no more need to warn people through prophets or judgments or these types of things. You have the gospel now, and we have the Holy Spirit given to us that leads us to repentance, which is God's plan going out through the nations. As of the cross, God's authority to judge has solely been given to Christ. It's not shared with anybody anymore. In the Old Testament, it had to be shared. It had to be shared with kings and judges and Joshua and various prophets. All these things were typifying Christ. Do you understand? As of even pagan authorities, Nebuchadnezzar and Sennacherib, they were benefiting from the fact that God was using them as the rod of his discipline to discipline the Israelites. The only reason they had authority to do all those things is because God imparted that authority temporarily to these kings to be able to carry out the judgment. But as of the cross, the wrath is spent for the elect. So the people who God has chosen to save, there's no more wrath for them. There's no condemnation, nothing to worry about. There's wrath left over for the reprobate, and that's building up. And so God has appointed a time to finish all accounts, to judge the whole earth. And that's the time when Jesus returns. And Jesus is the one who commences the judgment because he has authority. He's God. He's fully God. He has full authority. That authority now is concentrated in Christ. Meaning, very, very important, the church is not a political entity that shares the authority to do judgments like Israel did. Do you understand the very important difference? The wicked will be destroyed at Christ's coming, and Christ is ruling while his enemies are being put under his feet. He's the head of the church. We are spreading the gospel. There are predestined things that need to happen through prophecy. And God's plan of salvation is taking over the world. Of course, at the very end, Satan is allowed to be worshipped, and most of the people will take the mark. God is drawing his elect out of this system. And when Jesus returns, he will judge it and destroy it. But it's very important that in the process, before that happens, the church is not a military or political entity. It has no authority to judge anybody. All authority has been given to Christ. We are not enforcing laws. We are not enforcing, the 10 Commandments. We are spreading the gospel and telling people the truth so that they wake up, and especially in this generation, that they're not deceived by the Great Delusion. In the Old Testament, religion and politics were united because they had to be. It had to be united. In the New Testament, they are separate. Religion and politics are separate. Render unto Caesar what is Caesar's, render unto God what is God's. Religion and politics are completely separate in the New Testament. And this is the mark of inversion that you see everywhere else. Dispensationalism, satanic doctrine. What do? Instead of reading the New Testament, using the New Testament as the filter for the Old Testament, they do it backwards. The Old Testament is the filter to read the New Testament. And so you have the Jews and their promised land and this and that, and the revival of the Jews, all these inversions, because they invert the way it's supposed to be done. Well, again, where God has two genders, the devil unites. So where God separates, the devil unites. Where God unites, the devil separates. The Old Testament, church and religion, or religion and politics were united. They had to be. The New Testament, they're divided. What does the devil do? It unites. It unites the religion and politics in the New Testament. The church has got to be the church militant. We got to conquer the 7 mountains. We have to take over society. We got to Christianize the world. We got to enforce these laws. Otherwise, Jesus is not going to return. We got to conquer the left. So the devil does opposite everything that God does, and that's a sign that this Christian nationalist stuff is just of the devil. Of course, it can't even be called Christian nationalism, but anyway, it's counterfeit Christianity. We, in the church age, are to concern ourselves with spreading the gospel and trust that God will avenge our sufferings, either at the final judgment or in time and space, but nonetheless, it's not our responsibility. We have the benefit of a Messiah that is ruling from heaven and has already conquered the powers of darkness. And prophecy is fulfilling before our eyes, and that means that things are going to come to an end very soon. So we have the luxury of surrendering. Do you understand? You don't need to take control and go and do God's errands and kill people and enact judgment. All judgment has been given to the Son, and the Son is ruling in heaven right now, peacefully. Everything is coming to an end. He's going to return physically to the earth, and he will cast judgment and destroy all the wicked. You don't have to worry about any of that stuff. All you have to worry about is developing your relationship with Christ and spreading the gospel. That is what we should be concerning ourselves with. But you see, this is the problem. Christian nationalists see the opposite. They see that we have to basically do all of these worldly things like conquer the world for Christ, get the 7 mountains. And of course, they use the inverted lens of the Old Testament to the New Testament, rather than seeing the New Testament as the lens to interpret the Old Testament. They use the Old Testament, where there was a union between church or religion and politics, basically, and there had to be. They used that as justification for today's Christian nationalism. So you have to be aware of that. And in my documentary on should Christians be involved in politics, that's a good one. It's a nice one. You can send people. I think it's only 15 minutes long, and it's animated, very engaging. I discuss some of those Old Testament passages that are very important that people like to use. But anyway, folks, this is only going to increase in temperature. Right now, it seems like there's nothing but good intentions, but don't let that fool you. These things are just warming up the pot to ultimately get to the point where they're going to enforce a day of rest, and it will turn very fanatical. I mean, look at Candace Owens. Just look at her alone. The video that she posted with the Christ is King and kicking that guy in the pit, I mean, that is just scary. Because eventually, that guy in the pit is not going to stand for, like liberals and leftists and communists and, yada, yada, yada. That guy in the pit, that meme, is going to stand for you and me, the people who are refusing to go with this system, refusing to rest on Sunday and acknowledge the Pope as the authority. You're going to be the one that is the heretic that needs to be kicked into the pit. And they will say Christ is king as they do it, which of course is a fulfillment of Jesus' words. But these things will only increase. Notice also, like with Trump, how he's just constantly flip-flopping things and going towards how he's being directed. He's just playing whatever hand they're giving him. And of course, he's playing towards the direction of a new world order with a digitized monetary system, a Christian nationalist reality. I mean, even like in 2016 versus 2020 versus 2024, if you compare those 3 election years, how he has changed his rhetoric from, he was not at all about religion in 2016. Now in 2024, he's like full on union of church and state. He's openly about like, we need to have religion mandated in this country. So just realize that this is happening very quickly. And as soon as Trump does make it to office, who knows how many shenanigans it's going to be until then. I am not discounting the fact that there will be many false flags and probably delays just like last time. But look, the end is Christian nationalist, folks. Trump is coming back. Trump is coming back, and he will be a key instrument in implementing this false light system, which will eventually make it to the rest of the world. So cling to the word, cling to the Bible, learn the truth about what it says, learn the truth about the Sabbath, so that you can debate those clever Catholic priests who are very well read. But of course, if you have big ears, you can see right through their nonsense, and get edified with the resources that I mentioned to you. There are plenty of resources in my library. Get edified and take notes and learn the information there. It's straight information. Of course, the most important thing is that you trust in Christ to guide you and to provide for you, because he is the creator, the provider, and the redeemer. And as these things get hotter and hotter, you're going to have to rely on him more and more. Like I said, eventually there'll probably be a time when you have to turn your phone off, or maybe we'll have walkie-talkies. Maybe we'll have a bartering system. I don't know. I'm not going to obsess about it. If God puts me in that direction, I will think about it, but I'm taking it one day at a time. And I suggest that for you too. Right now, if you start obsessing over, living in a bunker and being off grid and all these things, look, that's not going to save you. Being off grid is not going to save you from what's coming. It's really not. There's no such thing as off grid. And if you were truly, truly, truly off grid, that is exceedingly dangerous and very difficult to survive. So you have to realize that this whole off-grid thing is, look, it's good. It's good to have some tools like that if God has given you the resources and he's given you the inclination, but don't obsess over it. God will guide you to the truth, and you never know how the plan of your life will unfold. That's up to God. So cling to the Lord, cling to the truth, learn the truth about the Sabbath, and stay sharp. Stay sharp, and we'll see you until the next time. God bless.